Hi, I'm Sophie. I lived in a beautiful suburban neighborhood where my life was filled with both hope and sadness. One sunny afternoon, Michael and I sat in our cozy living room, and the ticking clock broke the silence. "Why don't we try another doctor, Sophie? There must be someone who can help," Michael said, sounding hopeful. I sighed, feeling the weight of years of failed treatments. "I don't know, Michael. It feels like we've seen every specialist in the state." He took my hand and looked at me sincerely. "We can't give up. We're in this together." His support kept me going, but we didn't know that trouble was coming. The doorbell rang, and Michael's mother, Evelyn, stood there, looking disapproving. "Michael, we need to talk, alone," she said, casting a contemptuous glance at me. Reluctantly, Michael followed her to the kitchen. I could hear them talking. "Michael, you need to think about your future. This situation with Sophie isn't changing," Evelyn said, her voice cold. "Mom, I love Sophie. We're not giving up on having a family," Michael replied firmly. "You need an heir to carry on the family name. Maybe it's time to consider other options," Evelyn suggested, hurting my feelings. That night, as we lay in bed, Michael wrapped his arm around me. "Don't listen to her, Sophie. We'll prove her wrong," he whispered. Days turned into weeks, and our hope returned when I finally got a positive pregnancy test. We were so happy, but our joy didn't last long. During a family dinner, Evelyn said something hurtful. "A baby with her health issues? Let's see how long this lasts," she muttered just loud enough for us to hear. I felt a lump in my throat, but Michael squeezed my hand under the table. "We're going to be fine, love," he reassured me. The next months were filled with ups and downs. Our families gathered for a baby shower, and even Evelyn pretended to be excited, but her cold gaze told a different story. "Make sure you take care of yourself, Sophie. We wouldn't want anything to happen to the baby," she said, sounding insincere. "I will, Evelyn. Thank you," I replied, trying to hide my discomfort. As my due date got closer, Michael and I prepared the nursery. The walls were painted a calming pastel blue, and the crib was ready for our little miracle. "It's perfect, isn't it?" Michael said proudly. "It's everything we've ever dreamed of," I replied, feeling a mix of love and anticipation. However, our dreams shattered when complications arose during labor. The doctors rushed me into surgery, and when I woke up, they told me our baby boy didn't survive. Holding each other, Michael and I cried for the child we never got to meet. In my grief, Evelyn's hurtful words echoed in my mind. Despite our pain, we refused to give up. With each other's support, we faced our challenges head-on, determined to overcome the hurdles life threw at us. "Our love is stronger than any obstacle," Michael assured me, his voice soothing my aching heart. Through our journey of despair and hope, we learned the true meaning of resilience and the strength of unconditional love. Our story was not over, and we were ready to face whatever came our way together. Months passed after our heartbreaking loss, and just when hope felt distant, a miracle happened. I was pregnant again. The joy Michael and I felt was beyond words. Like sunlight breaking through dark storm clouds, we embraced this new beginning after years of heartache. "Can you believe it, Sophie? We're going to be parents," Michael exclaimed, his eyes sparkling with excitement. The months flew by, bringing us closer to meeting our little miracle. The nursery was painted soft pink, and we often sat there imagining our lives with our baby girl. Finally, the day arrived. After hours of labor, we welcomed our daughter, Emma, into the world. She was perfect in every way. Her tiny hands and soft cries filled our hearts with indescribable love. "We did it, Sophie. She's here and she's perfect," Michael whispered, tears of joy in his eyes as he held Emma for the first time. Our little family felt complete. However, this happiness felt fragile, like a delicate bubble. Emma's innocent giggles filled our home, healing the scars of our past. One evening, during a family gathering, Evelyn and her daughter Grace arrived. Their smiles looked forced, and their congratulations felt hollow. Evelyn glanced at Emma, then at me, her eyes cold and unfeeling. "A girl, huh? Let's hope she stays healthy," she remarked, her tone ominous. I felt a twinge of discomfort but pushed it aside. Focusing on the joy in my arms, Michael squeezed my hand, silently promising that nothing would ruin our happiness. The first 3 months of Emma's life were a whirlwind of sleepless nights and endless cuddles, but our bliss was short-lived. Suddenly, Emma fell ill, and her condition worsened quickly. Despite the doctor's best efforts, we lost her. Our world, once filled with laughter and cries, was now silent. The emptiness at Emma's funeral was overwhelming. The air was heavy with grief as friends and family gathered. their faces showing sorrow. However, Evelyn and her daughter Grace stood out in the crowd. They showed no tears, no signs of sadness, almost as if they weren't affected by the tragedy at all. As I stood by Emma's tiny coffin, my heart breaking, I noticed Evelyn and Grace whispering to each other with smirks on their faces. Their blatant disrespect in such a sacred moment shocked me. "Can you believe it? Another one gone. Maybe it's a sign, huh?" Grace whispered, not realizing I could hear her. Evelyn chuckled softly. "Perhaps Michael will finally see sense and leave her." I was stunned as they exchanged smiles and whispers. Their laughter felt like a slap in the face, a mockery of our pain. Anger boiled inside me, and I whispered to Michael, "I can't believe they're doing this." Michael looked over, his expression shifting from confusion to disgust. "I'll talk to them," he said, but I was already moving towards them. "Really, Evelyn? Smiling at a time like this? What's wrong with you?" I couldn't hide the bitterness in my voice. Evelyn turned to me, her smile fading into a smirk. "Oh Sophie, always so dramatic. We were just what? Celebrating my daughter's death?" I interrupted, my voice rising. The crowd began to notice, murmurs growing louder. Michael joined me, his eyes filled with anger and disappointment. "Mom, this is unacceptable. You're at a funeral," he said sternly. Evelyn tried to defend herself. "We were just talking about..." "About what? How happy you are that my daughter is gone," I nearly screamed, my grief turning into rage. Grace stepped in, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Sophie, you're overreacting. We're just as sad as everyone else." "No, you're not," I shot back. "You never wanted me to be happy, not with Michael, not with Emma. You've always wanted me gone." Our confrontation caught everyone's attention. Michael stood firmly by my side, his arm around me, showing where his loyalty lay. "I can't do this anymore, Mom. Your constant negativity and disdain for Sophie are too much. I can't have you in our lives if this is how you're going to act," Michael said, his voice steady. Evelyn's face fell in shock and anger. "Michael, you can't be serious. She's manipulating you." "No, Mom, I'm seeing things clearly for the first time," he replied, his decision final. We walked away, leaving them behind amidst the whispers of the crowd. That day marked the end of our relationship with Evelyn and Grace. Michael chose to stand by me, and together we faced the world united in our grief and love. In the weeks that followed, our home became a sanctuary where we could mourn in peace, away from judgmental eyes. "I can't have her toxicity around us anymore," Michael said one evening, sadness in his voice. "I know it's hard, but I'm so grateful you're standing by me," I replied, my heart swelling with love for the man who had become my rock. As time passed, the sharp pain of loss turned into a dull ache, a constant reminder of what we had lost. We learned to live with it, building our lives around the empty space left by Emma's absence. "We'll get through this, Sophie, together," Michael often said, his words a beacon of hope during our darkest times. Our journey was far from over, but we faced it hand in hand, our love proving our resilience. The betrayal of family left a deep wound, but in each other, we found the strength to heal and move forward. As the years passed, they brought healing and new joys. Michael and I were blessed with 4 beautiful children, each a symbol of our enduring love and the strength we found in one another. Our home, once filled with sorrow, now echoed with laughter and the sound of little feet. As our children grew, so did their curiosity. They often asked about their grandmother, Evelyn, but the wounds she inflicted ran deep. Her absence in their lives was a conscious choice, made to protect them from the toxicity that had once threatened our happiness. One day, out of the blue, we received a call. Evelyn was gravely ill and wanted to see us. She wanted to meet the grandchildren she had never known. The news stirred a whirlwind of emotions within me. "Why now, Michael? After all these years?" I asked, my voice filled with confusion and bitterness. "I don't know, Sophie, but she's still my mother. Maybe we should let her meet the kids, just once," Michael replied, torn between his family ties and the pain of the past. After much deliberation, I agreed, not for Evelyn, but for our children and perhaps for Michael to offer him some closure. On the day of the visit, I watched as Evelyn entered our home, frail and aged, a stark contrast to the woman who once used words as weapons. Our children greeted her politely, unaware of the heavy history hanging in the air. As Evelyn interacted with them, I noticed a flicker of regret in her eyes, but it felt too little, too late. The chasm between us was too wide, and the hurt ran too deep. After the children went to bed, Evelyn turned to me, her eyes weary. "Sophie, I know I've made mistakes. I'm sorry, truly sorry, Evelyn said, her words long overdue but failing to stir forgiveness in my heart. Evelyn, I appreciate your apology, but I can't forget what you did, how you made us feel when we needed support the most. I looked at Michael, who sat beside me, a silent source of strength. Mom, we've moved on. We've built a happy life without the negativity you brought into it, he added firmly. Evelyn nodded, a single tear trailing down her cheek. I understand. I just needed to say it and try to make things right before it's too late. As she left our home that night, I felt a sense of closure. The chapter of our lives tainted by her bitterness was finally coming to an end. I had moved on, and we had moved on. In the faces of our children, I saw a bright future, unburdened by the past. We did the right thing letting her see the kids, I said. Yes, we did, for them, and maybe a little for us too, Michael replied, and I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Our story, marked by trials and tribulations, was also one of triumph and love. It reminded us that out of despair can come the greatest joys, and that, in the face of betrayal and hurt, the strength of the human spirit can prevail. The story of Sophie and her journey through heartache and triumph has come to an end, but it leaves us with a thought-provoking question. If you were in Sophie's place, would you have allowed Evelyn, the person who caused so much pain, to meet your children in her final days? Is compassion more important than past grievances, especially when someone is seeking forgiveness at the end of their life? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more engaging content. Your support means a lot and helps us bring more stories like this to you. Remember, every like, comment, and subscription helps us grow and continue sharing these narratives. Thank you for watching, and we can't wait to read your insights in the comments.
Days when things just aren't clicking with my husband, Nicholas. Amidst that, the sound of unlocking the door, followed by a familiar female voice. It was my sister, Melissa. She was loved by our parents in a way I never was. But it wasn't just her. Nicholas was there too. Melissa, why today? I quit my job over there. Thought it's about time we got married. Melissa, don't tell me the person you're marrying is. Your guesswork hasn't improved, has it? With a mocking smile, she tells me. The defective one with infertility. Got pregnant right away. Finally, an heir. Congratulations. But that child. An heir? I almost blurt out, but then fall silent. Kicked out of the room, I was left to contemplate my future alone at a cafe. And I thought, their child is impossible. The documents I brought with me tell that story. I'll definitely get back at them. I muttered in a low voice, unintentionally. My name is Amanda, 32 years old. A working housewife, married for 5 years. Nicholas is a former colleague, 3 years my senior. When we married, I moved to a different company in the same field, thinking it might cause problems if we stayed at the same place. I thought we had a marriage of mutual respect. But lately, things have seemed off. The reason is clear. We've been unable to have children for some time. But it's not just my fault. Yet, it's always me who ends up being blamed. It would be better if it was outright malice. But no, it's just unnecessary meddling with a look of concern. That's what's troubling about the words of our parents, from both sides. No, there was one person with pure malice. Melissa. Since we were young, I've always been compared to Melissa. Melissa is so cute. Amanda is the smart one. Well, that's still okay. You really can't compare to Melissa in charm or cuteness. Well, with that face of yours. Poor thing, compared to Melissa. Maybe try to be a bit more feminine? These were the words always thrown at me by relatives and neighbors. I've known this since I was a child. So, I made sure not to place my value there. Luckily, I didn't hate studying, so I leaned on being smart to get by. But as I got older, my parents' words began to irritate me. You're at the age maybe care a bit about how you look? If you study that hard, you won't even get a boyfriend, you know? Half serious, half spiteful, I ignored my parents' words. And then there was Melissa. You should just stay the way you are. That way, I stand out more, right? Frustrated and dismayed, I went to college and then got a job. Eventually, I started dating Nicholas, a colleague, and we got married. I took this as an opportunity to change jobs to a different company in the same field. I would have preferred to stay at my original company, but then the strange pressures came, this time from around me. And from Nicholas, especially. It's not really good for a married couple to work at the same company, so you should change jobs, right? He said it as if my changing jobs was the obvious choice. I had my doubts. But everyone I consulted said the same thing, you should be the one to change jobs. The exception was a female colleague or two. And a contact in the same field said, it's a pity, but introduced me to a workplace that was smaller but had a more flexible work environment. Thanks to that, I've been able to continue working in a job I find fulfilling even after getting married. But since getting married, the voices of both sets of parents wanting grandchildren have gotten louder. Working so hard. We'll never see a grandchild at this rate. Take it easy a bit. With Nicholas's income, Amanda, you should be fine. Have kids and relax already. The trouble is, these words are meant without malice. They think they're being kind. That's why it's so frustrating. The only saving grace is that we live apart from both our parents. But as we get older, their appeals become more fervent, to the point where even I started thinking about preconception care. That's when I began to seriously consider having children, visiting hospitals for consultations, and trying out. However, Nicholas seems to be quite passive about it. You know, you've been bringing up that topic a lot lately. If you keep on it, even I'll start losing interest. Why should I have to get tested? Each time, I explained. Both our parents and his are pressing us for children. Considering our ages, I'd like to have children while we still can. So, I want his cooperation. Yet, all he says is, children will come when they come. After about a year of such exchanges, I was angry enough to nearly drag Nicholas to get tested. He sulked, and his attitude towards the doctor's advice was lackluster. This led to even less intimacy between us. Even if I stay up late waiting for him on nights before his days off. What, you're still up? I end up getting snapped at. And then, I'm just not in the mood with you anymore. Was told. Surely, the way I handled it could have been better. The matter of children should be a decision made together. I know that. Eventually, calls started coming in from his parents' house. Lately, Nicholas has been coming over for meals quite often. Are you two all right? Wait, he goes there when he's late? Yes. He seems reluctant to come home. Hey, Amanda, are you taking proper care of him? I was bewildered by such questions. It's because you all are rushing us, I wanted to retort. After hanging up, I stopped waiting for Nicholas to come home. Honestly, I was tired of waiting for him. I never thought this would happen when we decided to get married, or even in the early days of our marriage. Nicholas, as a colleague, was dependable, and as a lover, he was someone I could envision a future with. I believed he was someone with whom I could build a new family at the beginning of our marriage. Never did I imagine I'd come to feel more at ease without him. Eventually, I started to think it was fine if Nicholas avoided coming home late into the night. I became increasingly absorbed in my work. Launching new projects, staying late at night for them. Our home no longer felt like a family. The usual "when will we see grandchildren" messages kept coming from both our parents and his. But I had started to let them slide. If he's not interested, whatever I do would be in vain. I was even losing the sense of purpose in our living together. Then one day, when I came home, the test results were in our mailbox. By then, I had almost forgotten about them, considering it was a relatively short waiting period. Yet, within that brief time, our relationship had grown increasingly cold. Thinking it was too late to matter now, I still opened the test results. There were no issues on my end. And when I looked at Nicholas's, I checked the document once, twice, thrice. But no matter how many times I looked, the result was the same. Nicholas had zoospermia. There was no way we could have children together. Looking at the documents, I felt an urge to laugh, thinking, there's no longer any point in staying married. This is hopeless. Let's divorce. Those words ran through my mind. That's when it happened. I heard the sound of the door unlocking. Is it really okay? A familiar female voice spoke. Melissa? I rushed to the entrance in surprise. But there, not only Melissa was present, but Nicholas was there too. Oh, Amanda, you're here? Why are you two together? I couldn't think of any reason for these two to arrive together. After all, Melissa had been working far away, having left our family home long ago. What? You still have that blank, unapproachable look. But the snide remark was unmistakably Melissa's. Well, never mind. Let us in, it's getting cold out. As she spoke, Melissa made her way into the house. Melissa, why today? Oh, Amanda, didn't you hear from Dad and Mom? From Dad and Mom? I quit my job over there. Thought it's about time we got married. I've never heard such a thing before. Well, but it's no use telling you, is it? Right. Saying that, Nicholas puts his arm around Melissa and gently leads her towards the living room. Could it be? Melissa, don't tell me the person you're marrying is. Your guessing is as bad as ever. When did this happen? With a mocking smile, Melissa tells me. The defective one with infertility. Got pregnant right away. Finally, an heir. Congratulations! But that child... An heir? Surprised by my almost saying something I didn't mean, I hurriedly fell silent. Do you have a problem with that? No, nothing. Hey, Nicholas, do James and Kayla know about this? Yeah, I told them. Really? Melissa too? Well, Nicholas came to our house when I returned home. So, that's what it was. This was happening in my family home with these two. Then there's no point in me being married to this person. Whether my feelings showed on my face. I hate it. That attitude of yours, always. Melissa didn't answer my question, instead she yelled at me. I also can't stand your I know everything attitude. That's right, I'm going to live here now, so you should leave. Yeah, I don't want to share the same air as you two either. I packed my things and closed the door of the house I had lived in with Nicholas behind me. Dragging my suitcase, I entered a cafe to start with. While having a light meal, I searched for a place to stay, feeling a growing anger inside me. Divorcing is fine. I'll do as you wish. I've always, in one way or another, done as desired. But this is the result. I'll throw away all of this. Neither my family nor my in-laws would protect me at all. Did my parents not notice anything between Melissa and him when they met at the family home? No, that can't be. Surely, when Melissa returned home having quit her job, my parents chose Nicholas's place for her new stage, even if it meant driving me away. Both my parents and in-laws would celebrate them if they heard about the child. Despite rushing me all this time. But that can't be. The documents I brought with me tell that story. I'll definitely get back at them. I muttered in a low voice, unintentionally. I decided to stay long-term in a business hotel for now. I need more time to decide what to do next. With my job being so busy now that it's on track, even if I rented a short-term apartment, I wouldn't have time to cook. Staying at a hotel where they clean for you is easier if you're just sleeping there. With eating out and laundry, commuting to and from work is sufficient. It's much more comfortable than a home where I always have to think about household chores. And as I started to think that my post-divorce room could be as simple as this, someone came looking for me at the company.
Kevin Garcia?
I don't recall the name written on the business card handed to me by the receptionist. Anyway, upon meeting, he greeted me very politely. I'm terribly sorry for the inconvenience you've been through because of Melissa.
Does that mean you are, perhaps, Melissa's?
I managed to swallow the words, the father of her child? Yes, we're dating. Even now, at this very moment, Melissa is mine. Ah, this person might be strange. I thought to myself.
What exactly do you want with me?
I'm truly sorry about Melissa's recent behavior towards you. Well, it is a nuisance, but I was at a loss for what to say to him. I would really like to take Melissa back, but she's at your family home now, isn't she? That's when I felt a sense of incongruity. His way of asking left no room for disagreement, yet there was a distance in it.
Are you saying you can't get in touch with Melissa right now?
That's right. He sighed deeply, looking disheartened. For some reason, as soon as she quit her job, I've completely lost contact with Melissa. Despite sending so many messages, whereas before, I would get a reply at least once for every 10 I sent. Kevin showed me the screen of his smartphone. Then, I inadvertently let out a small gasp. The messages Kevin sent to Melissa were lined up in a row. Is this guy sending messages every 5 minutes, or what? And the contents are like, what are you doing now? I was thinking about you, what time will you be home today, and so on. I wondered how he could work with all that messaging. Then, without being asked, he started talking about how he met Melissa. Melissa was a colleague at my company. She helped me a lot. I've always admired her, but she never showed interest in anyone, just worked hard year after year. Can such a woman suddenly go home and steal her sister's husband? Whether he noticed my skepticism or not, Kevin continued. Yes, I've had feelings for her for over 10 years. And I thought they finally bore fruit 3 months ago. So at that time, you finally started dating? We spent the morning together, so it means yes. Well, that's debatable. But soon after, Melissa started making mistakes at work and eventually fell ill, quitting her job without my knowledge. I realized I hadn't heard from Melissa about why she quit. Maybe there's a reason for it. I listened carefully as Kevin spoke rapidly. So when I asked a colleague about her health, I thought, maybe she's pregnant with my child.
Well, indeed Melissa is pregnant now. I knew it.
He stood up, overcome with emotion, looking up to the sky.
It must be fate, us being together. Because it was just one time, you know? And to conceive a child from that, it must be destiny. But didn't she run away from that destiny? No way, Melissa is just shy about my love.
Incredible. I've never seen anyone say such things with a straight face before. Amanda, please let me see Melissa. I have to propose to her properly.
But right now, Melissa is having an affair with my husband, and claiming that child is his. That must be her considering my future, since I'm younger. But I'm also quite mature, you know.
35 and 34, not exactly what you'd call mature. Anyway, this guy is devoted to Melissa, to my sister. I decide to test how devoted he really is. How devoted are you, exactly? So right now, I'm thinking about divorcing because of my husband's affair with Melissa.
You're getting divorced.
Well, since she's claiming to have a child and all, something must have been done. So, I'm thinking of suing for damages. Then Kevin immediately responds.
Damages? How much are we talking? Dollar how many K? If it's about suing Melissa, I'll pay.
You're wealthy, aren't you? My own question sounded silly to me. Yes, actually my family owns the company I'm working at. Wow. I wanted Melissa to know the real me, so I've never mentioned that. But my father has been telling me to move from the current company to the headquarters. From his wording, it seems Kevin is indeed a wealthy heir.
So when I talked about the transfer to Melissa, she started responding to my evening invitations differently and accepted my proposal. Really?
At first, she accepted. But as days went by, she started becoming distant. Maybe she started feeling suffocated by his incessant messaging. Before I knew it, Melissa had quit her job without consulting me. No doubt about it. She ran away. Maybe she thought her being pregnant would be a burden to me. Look, I've even prepared a ring. He took out a ring with a dazzlingly large gem. I don't think it's a burden. Those words naturally came out of my mouth. No, it's not about being a burden. Probably, she just physically couldn't stand him anymore. Melissa has always been praised as beautiful and cute by those around her, and indeed, she was. There was never a shortage of men around her. But those men also only saw Melissa as a plaything. And from her side, she probably never felt owned by anyone. But then, she ended up pregnant. Unexpected as it was, given her age, maybe she finally wanted to latch onto someone. So, she got involved with this guy who had always been hanging around her, only to run away due to his overly possessive nature. Kevin sighs deeply. Melissa, whom I've loved for so long. Just when I thought she had finally accepted me. And when I started talking about marriage seriously, she disappeared. I thought her parents might have forcibly taken her back, so I came here. Amanda, could you please lead me to Melissa? Honestly, I was taken aback by his one-sided torrent of words. But there seemed to be a way to use this guy to my advantage. I understand. I just have one request, I said, smiling at Kevin. Then, I hired a lawyer, gathered Nicholas and Melissa, and both sets of parents for a discussion. The meeting was in a hotel conference room. Not a cheap business hotel where I was staying, but a proper city hotel. This is a pretty nice hotel. Not bad taste for you. It was me, my lawyer, Nicholas, Melissa, and both sets of parents, 6 people facing each other. In front of everyone was a set of coffee and tea prepared by the hotel, filling the room with a wonderful aroma. Then, my lawyer started the conversation.
Thank you all for gathering today. Regarding the divorce case, let's confirm first. Both parties agree to the divorce, correct?
Nicholas answered with a relieved expression.
Of course. Melissa is pregnant. There's no point in staying married to Amanda, who hasn't shown any signs of pregnancy no matter how long we wait.
The two exchanged smiles. The lawyer continued without reading the room. However, since the relationship between the two can be considered an affair, Amanda will claim damages from Nicholas.
Damages?
Kayla raised her voice.
Oh, come on. It's Amanda's fault for not getting pregnant despite our support. Are you saying Nicholas is to blame?
Kayla is right, Amanda. My father chimed in.
Besides, can't you be happy for Melissa having a child?
I was dumbfounded by their logic.
So, you're saying you don't want to pay the damages?
I asked bluntly.
No, that's not what we said. Anyway, if you think a child has been conceived, that's because you've committed an act that can be considered adultery, right?
Nicholas hesitated in his response.
The amount I'm asking for damages is reasonable, isn't it? I'm not asking for something like $100,000.
I then had my lawyer present the amount of damages to Nicholas.
Ugh. Well, I never said I wouldn't pay.
Nicholas grimaced at the amount.
So you'll pay? Yeah.
Relieved by the unexpectedly modest amount. He signed the divorce papers without fuss.
Thank you very much. Wait a minute.
Melissa, looking puzzled, called out to the leaving lawyer.
Just damages to Nicholas, is that okay? Don't I need to apologize to Amanda? Melissa, you shouldn't even have to ask. You're jobless and pregnant now. No, Melissa, it's fine.
I replied nonchalantly, sipping my tea. She exaggeratedly sighed in relief and smiled at me.
Oh, good. You're being kind for once.
Me, kind? I put down my teacup on the table. And smiled. Hey, Melissa.
I wonder if you can still say that after seeing this. What?
I handed Melissa the envelope containing the test results that had arrived earlier.
What's this?
As she read through the documents, her expression gradually changed.
What is this all about? No, Nicholas, you mustn't look.
With that, Melissa tried to hide the document from Nicholas, who was attempting to peek. I interrupted Melissa's actions.
Nicholas, these are the results of the tests you took before. I happened to take them with me when I left. I thought today would be a good day to give them back to you.
I told Nicholas clearly.
Tests, you mean?
Nicholas seemed to remember after a moment and snatched the documents from Melissa's hands.
This is...
He was astonished, his gaze shifting between the document and me.
As you can see, you're diagnosed with azoospermia. What?
Both sets of parents murmured in confusion.
So, there's no way a child could be between you and Melissa. It's impossible. Is that true, Nicholas? Let me see that.
The document was passed from hand to hand among the in-laws. Nicholas was holding his head in his hands.
So, that means...
Mother's gaze shifted towards Melissa's belly.
Melissa, you lied to me?
Nicholas asked her in a low, dark tone.
No, that's not it. I love you. I don't care if you love me or not. The fact that it's not my child is the only certainty. What is all this? Whose child is it? It's... Answer me!
At his shout, as if on cue, there was a loud knock on the conference room door.
Come in.
Responding, the lawyer stood up.
I'll take it from here. All right then. I'll go file the divorce papers.
Thank you. And the person who came in exchange was...
Hey! Melissa! I finally found you.
Such a cheerful voice. With a bright red bouquet of roses, Kevin entered the conference room with a beaming smile.
Finally found my beloved.
Melissa shrieked in a high pitch, retreating back in her chair until she was cornered against the wall. Finally, she found her voice.
Wait, why are you here? Why? You're asking me why? How can you ask me that? There's no escaping from me, you know.
With a big smile and holding the large bouquet, Kevin slowly approached Melissa.
Actually, I'm the one who booked this conference room at the hotel today. Huh? Wait, Amanda, you know this guy?
Melissa glared at me with sharp eyes in an instant. I sighed deeply.
Didn't you find it strange that I'd book such a nice hotel conference room?
Indeed, she just had mentioned it was unusual for me. If it were up to me, I'd have used a conference room at the business hotel where I was staying. I certainly couldn't afford a place with a solid table, fresh flowers in the corner, and coffee and tea brought in from a proper cafe. There's no way I could afford that.
Let me introduce him. This is Kevin Garcia. He came to my company the other day, worried about Melissa. Yes, I was worried,
he said, placing the impressive bouquet in front of Melissa. Such an impressive bouquet. Could there be 100 roses? Kevin stood in front of Melissa, leaning against the wall and looking down at her. Melissa, were you planning to give away my child to someone else? Or were you thinking of raising it alone without telling me? The words shocked the parents and in-laws.
Well then.
So, you're the real. Kevin was at a loss for words. Unconcerned about the onlookers, he continued to speak solely to Melissa.
Melissa, I truly love you from the bottom of my heart. Why won't you believe me? Yes, from the moment we first met 10 years ago.
His continuous, breezy machine gun talk left everyone dumbfounded and silent. Kevin's refreshing narrative, remembering even the most surprising details from their first meeting, left me half amazed, half exasperated, yet listening once again. Eventually, Kevin took Melissa's hand, trying to gently slide on the ring he had taken out.
Stop it!
Regaining her senses at the sparkle of the gem, Melissa shook off his hand and vehemently shook her head.
No, no. You're not okay. It's decided.
Why am I not okay? As I've just said, I won't let you want for anything. My parents have always been worried about me not finding a marriage partner. But now, they can be relieved. And with a child, too.
No, wait, Amanda. You set this up.
Her wrists, her neck, covered in goosebumps. It's clear she's truly repulsed. Don't say I set this up.
Why did you bring him here after I ran away?
Because during this situation, he said he'd pay whatever amount for you. I glanced at the parents briefly.
Let me introduce myself again,
he said, handing out his business card and putting the ring back in its case. The titles on the card shocked my father, and my mother was astounded by the size of the gem on the ring. Oh. Then, the parents who had been protecting Melissa withdrew their hands.
What? Dad, Mom?
Sorry, Melissa, we really can't protect you anymore.
Besides, he's the heir of the group company you worked for. Maybe, but even so.
The fact that she was physically repelled by him was not entirely lost on the parents.
So, you both agree to our marriage then? Well, yes.
Having the real father is better for the child, isn't it?
Dad. Mom.
Her plea for help was ignored as her parents had already started shaking hands with Kevin.
Thank you. Then Amanda, I'll pay the money later.
Saying that, Kevin pushed the bouquet to Melissa and swiftly picked her up despite her protests.
No way!
Melissa screamed and resisted as much as she could, but no one moved to help. Then, escorted by someone, Kevin left with Melissa through the door they had opened. I thought I heard Melissa's distant scream, but it was none of my concern. Shall we conclude here?
Amanda!
Nicholas suddenly raised his voice towards me. What?
Can't we make another go of it?
What are you talking about? I took out my smartphone and called the lawyer who had just left.
Hello, how did it go?
Yes, it's been officially filed. In the midst of this chaos, the lawyer had filed the divorce papers at court.
The mistake was you telling me to quit my job and move to another workplace right from the start. Did I say that?
I was astounded.
Well, I'll be expecting the compensation. Wait, Amanda! I was wrong, so please!
It's too late now. And with that, I too left the conference room. Since then, he has returned to his parents' house and has been paying the compensation as part of the property distribution. I've heard rumors that the mood in Nicholas's former in-laws' house has been gloomy. They never expected their son to have azoospermia. It must have been a hard fact for my former in-laws to accept. They've been advising Nicholas to go for treatment multiple times, but he finds the burden too much and is thinking of leaving home again. Not only that, rumors of him having an affair with his wife's sister and getting divorced have spread within the company, and his prospects for promotion have been blocked by the senior management. The source of these rumors were my former colleagues. Unhappy about me moving to another company when we got married, they contacted me as soon as they heard about the divorce and spread the news of Nicholas's misconduct far and wide. Apparently, his assertions that the failure to conceive was my fault also fueled the rumors of his azoospermia. And as for Melissa and her parents,
I wish you could talk to Kevin and somehow get Melissa to meet us.
I often receive such calls from my mother. Kevin, since then, has taken Melissa to his family home and they apparently got married easily. I received a transfer of money from Kevin as a form of thanks. And he frequently sends me messages with photos attached, titled "Today's Melissa." It's not a significant amount compared to the number of messages he sends to Melissa, so I just forward them to her parents. Of course, it's not out of kindness. After all, Melissa's parents can't discern her location from those photos. They come to me pleading, but I consistently ignore their calls. The parents thought they could get close to Kevin's family, but it's not that simple. What he wanted was Melissa and the child she was carrying, and his kindness towards the parents seemed to be temporary. Even if they complained about kidnapping or anything else, they had already agreed to their marriage, so there was nothing more they could do. Without being able to establish a relationship with the wealthy family they hoped for, the parents can only watch as the favored Melissa becomes increasingly worn out in the photos.
Good work today. Staying late again today? Yes. I just want to do a bit more research before leaving.
Since then, I've moved out of the business hotel and into a short-term apartment. It's not very spacious, but I splurged on a bed comfortable enough for me to sleep alone, focusing on getting a good rest in my own space. Thankfully, that means minimal cleaning is needed. Work has become busier with increased business trips, sometimes not returning for half a month. But those days are truly fulfilling. I don't know what the future holds, but for now, I want to enjoy working by myself for a while. It was the eve of the wedding that brought together my family and my fiancé's family. Suddenly remembering something, I headed back to the apartment I shared with Derek. Just as I was about to knock on the bathroom door, I overheard a conversation between Derek and Lily. Why is Lily in our bathroom? There's only one conclusion.
Karen, she's great as a housekeeper and money provider. Just a little praise, and she's all ours. She's starved for affection because her parents always favored me. Poor thing. After contacting my future parents-in-law and connecting my mobile phone and TV, I followed the two who headed to the bedroom. Waiting for round 2 to begin, I started a live broadcast. Look, everyone. A man cheating with his fiancé's sister, and a sister who stole her sister's fiancé. Even the animals at the zoo would be amazed by these odd creatures. Derek and Lily looked at me in stunned silence. In my heart, I declared war on Derek and Lily. They both made a complete fool of me. Don't think you can get through tomorrow unscathed. I'm Karen, a 42-year-old office worker. Soon, I was to marry Derek, a colleague from my company.
Actually, I divorced 10 years ago because of my previous husband's infidelity and thought I was done with marriage. However, a few years ago, when Derek joined my team at work, I was instantly charmed by his smile. Derek, a leader and a joker, was the complete opposite of me, who was only serious and not good at speaking. Lacking self-confidence, I never thought I was good enough for Derek. So I was quite surprised when he asked me out. Even after accepting his proposal, I was half happy and half anxious. I thought it might be prenuptial doubt, but my intuition was right. Soon after, an unbelievable incident occurred. I have an older sister, Lily, by 2 years. Sisters are often compared in appearance, but it was especially bad in our case. Right from birth, I've been told various things. My dad, who had wanted a boy, said when he found out his second child was also a girl, "Don't need 2 girls." I can't understand why my mom told me that. Although Dad wanted a son, he adored Lily, who looked just like our beautiful mom. And Mom, even at my birthday parties, would dress up Lily more than me. Lily captivated not just our parents but everyone around her. And people would compare us and then sympathize with me. "Karen is plain. She doesn't look like her mom. Poor thing, Lily is the only cute one. If only you were born more beautiful." Our grandma, who raised us in place of our self-employed parents, treated us sisters equally. So, somehow, I managed to grow up straight and honest. But when Grandma passed away, I was left without an ally in the house. If Lily broke something and acted cute to apologize, she was forgiven. In my case, I was scolded without my opinion being heard. When Lily lied, Dad gently admonished her upon realizing the lie. Such lies are easy to see through. However, when I, at 5 years old, told a lie, I was furiously berated. "Karen is the worst kind of person. Liars are not welcome in our home. Leave right now." I wasn't actually thrown out, but for a while, I lived in fear of being abandoned by Dad. Meanwhile, the mom, dressing us in matching outfits, would always sigh. "Lily looks so cute, why doesn't it suit Karen?" Given such treatment by our parents, it's no wonder Lily grew up spoiled. By 5th grade, Lily and I had a master-servant relationship. "I want ice cream." "Go buy it now." "I'll go after I finish studying." "I don't care about that." "Hurry up." Even if I appealed to our parents, I was made out to be the bad guy. "Just go buy her some ice cream." Listen to Lily. Moreover, Lily only showed her true colors in front of me, hiding them in front of our parents, classmates, and teachers. So, no one but me knew Lily was a liar, cunning, and spoiled. Sometimes, Lily would look at me with pity and a nasty smile. "Poor Karen. You're compared in everything you do to me. Born from the same parents, I'm a princess, and you're like a slave. Is it fun living like that?" I was so irritated, but instead of talking back, I worked hard in my studies and sports to please our parents. My grades were always top-notch. I even received awards in track and field. But Dad, far from being happy, showered me with sarcasm. "It's disgraceful to be a capable woman. If only Karen were as cute as Lily." When I was fed up with people fawning over Lily, finally, a friend appeared. One day in 7th grade, Lily's best friend Alice came to our house, furious. Alice had caught Lily flirting with her boyfriend at school, and when she confronted her, Lily was unapologetic. She said, "He suits me better. He likes me more than Alice, sorry." I didn't know she was that terrible. "We're through." Crying and angry, all I could do was apologize to Alice. "I'm sorry for the awful thing Lily did. It's terrible after everything what you did for her. There's no need for you to apologize. If Lily's mean to you, tell me. I'm on your side, Karen." That incident started our text exchanges with Alice. Even after going to different schools, we remained close friends, meeting for lunch on weekends. Desperate to escape my suffocating home, I attended a university with a dormitory on a scholarship. Finally free from Lily, I enjoyed my college life and landed a job at a big company. A few years later, I married a colleague. But within a year, for some unknown reason, he declared he wanted a divorce. He never clearly stated why, and we parted ways, leaving me baffled. Back then, I thought I was done with marriage, but after 10 years, I felt lonely being single. Growing up discriminated against by my parents, I longed to create a happy family. I hoped to remarry if I met the right person, and then I met Derek. When I brought Derek to my parents' home, they, caring about appearances, took a liking to Derek, who had such a top-tier titles. A graduate of a famous university, working at a big company. While they dismissed me, not ladylike despite my equal status, they praised Derek. My parents liked Derek, and I felt relieved until Lily returned. Over 40, still single, working part-time. Lily lived at our parents' home without contributing financially. I heard she usually went out on Friday nights. So we scheduled the family meeting for Friday, but just tonight, she returned home early. Probably hearing about tonight's plan from our parents, she hurried back from her part-time job to charm Derek.
Nice to meet you. I'm Karen's sister, Lily.
Lily greeted with a sweet voice, and Derek was instantly captivated. I'm used to such reactions. But Derek did more than just stare at Lily, he started talking enthusiastically.
Wow. Lily, you're really beautiful. Karen, why didn't you tell me sooner? I would have wanted to meet someone this beautiful much earlier.
Really? I thought you both were too busy. Normally, you wouldn't go out of your way to introduce them, right? Comparing my tense face with Lily, Derek excitedly said. But Karen, you don't look anything like her. It's hard to believe you're sisters. Were you adopted or something? Everyone else burst into loud laughter.
Lily, you look like an actress.
Thank you. Derek, you're handsome too. Derek blushed from ear to ear at Lily's flattery.
Nah, not really. Lily, you have such grace and shine. Marrying Karen means having such a beauty in the family. I have to introduce her to my friends. They'll be so envious.
Derek continued talking, getting carried away.
Lily's skin is so clear and beautiful. Karen looks older in comparison. Drinking while gazing at a beauty, it's the best.
Derek, you have quite an eye. Derek, please take good care of Lily. I was dumbfounded by my parents' remarks. It was one thing for Derek to behave like this, but my parents' reaction was strange. Normally, a fiancé praising Lily over me would upset anyone. Yet, there they were, smiling joyfully. Derek, what you said earlier was awful. Praising Lily right in front of me. On the way home in the car, I complained, and Derek looked astonished. But it's true that Lily is beautiful, right? Yes, but... Karen, you know I'm honest. I have to say what I think. Keeping it inside doesn't sit well with me. I frowned at Derek's unapologetic attitude. I know that, but there's a limit. What's wrong? You don't like secrets, do you? Just stop praising Lily in front of me. It makes me feel bad. Okay, I got it. But Derek seemed to forget my request soon enough. Even after the wedding date was set, he kept bringing up Lily, comparing her to me, and praising her incessantly. If you like Lily so much, why don't you marry her? I blurted out in frustration, and Derek hurriedly explained. Sorry. It's just that Lily is my type. But I want to marry Karen. I was drawn to the homely Karen. He said, laughing. Karen is good at cooking and cleaning. I'm terrible at those things, so it's really a lifesaver. After getting engaged, Derek, who had been living alone, moved into my apartment. We're getting married soon, so let's live together, he insisted, starting our cohabitation forcefully. Though he paid half the rent and living expenses, Derek didn't help with the chores at all, leaving everything to me. I also worked full-time, with overtime and weekend shifts. Yet when I came home tired, Derek, lounging on the sofa, glanced at me while fiddling with his phone. Welcome back. What about dinner? I asked you to do the laundry. Weren't you off today, Derek? Derek feigned ignorance. Did you ask me? Sorry, I forgot. I wanted to relax today too. I'll help out after we're married. We were planning to be a dual-income couple after marriage. But given his attitude, I wondered if he would really help with the housework. Not wanting to argue before the wedding, I didn't push the issue too much. Finally, the night before our wedding, I received a call from Derek's parents, Samantha and Tim. They wanted to have a wedding eve celebration and asked me to bring my family to their house. I was a bit worried. Derek had suddenly become very busy at work a few months ago. Late nights, business trips, weekend work, it was almost always after midnight when he came home. Derek was working either Saturday or Sunday every week. Though we were in different departments, it was still the same company. It wasn't a busy period, so I wondered, was he really that busy? But I couldn't complain since it was work. Fortunately, all the wedding preparations were done. I'm happy about it, but I might have to work late. If that happens, you can start without me. Understood. I'll save Derek's favorite steak, so work without worry. Derek had this conversation on the phone with Samantha the day before. When I told my parents, Dad didn't seem to care much. Derek's dad and I both like baseball. I'm looking forward to talking about it. It seemed they just wanted to drink and have fun under the pretext of celebrating their daughter's wedding. Well, it's better if the parents get along. I'm not fond of my parents, but Derek's parents seem nice, so I was relieved they got along. On the eve of the wedding, I got a text from Derek. He had sudden overtime. When I told Derek's parents, my mom remembered something. Come to think of it, Lily said her part-time job got extended and she'd be late too. It was suspicious. Usually, she'd leave work immediately, even if someone got sick. Soon, my parents and Tim and Samantha started drinking and chatting happily around the lavish meal. After setting aside a portion for Derek, I was eating my favorite dish when I suddenly remembered something important. I had completely forgotten to revise the letter I was to read to my parents. I didn't want to write it because my resentment was greater than my gratitude. But Mom insisted on including that part, so I had no choice. When I started writing, it inevitably turned into complaints about how my parents favored Lily over me. Reading it tomorrow would dampen the mood. I had to force myself to add some words of gratitude. I decided to make the revisions before drinking. Quietly leaving Derek's parents' house, I headed back to the apartment I shared with Derek. Looking up at our apartment from the parking lot, I saw the bathroom light on. Derek must be taking a shower before coming to his parents. Thinking this, I went upstairs. Not wanting to startle him, I decided to announce my arrival. As I walked down the hallway, I was about to knock on the bathroom door when I heard Derek's voice. Ah, it's going to be lonely. Can't see Lily during the honeymoon. I feel the same, Derek. I almost cried out. Why was Lily in our shower room? With Derek. There was only one conclusion. They were in that kind of relationship. I was about to collapse in shock, but I braced myself against the wall. Derek laughed and said, Karen is excellent as a housekeeper and money provider. She does all the housework perfectly and earns about the same as me. Simple-minded, so she follows whatever I say with just a little praise. She's starved for affection because her parents always favored me. Poor thing. Their mocking tone made my body tremble with anger. If only she were a bit prettier, I'd be nicer to her. She's improved a lot since the old days.
That much? Seriously? How ugly was she?
Lily answered with a sweet voice, to Derek laughing. I was embarrassed to introduce her to my friends. But one day, I changed my mind. She's my foil, so I decided to endure it. I see. But she's smart, you know. Too smart. She's good at her job. Well, that's fine. Otherwise, she'd have no value. Oh, right. Hearing Lily and Derek's laughter, anger surged from the pit of my stomach. It's not that I'm smart, I worked hard. I put effort into my job. And they didn't understand that, even though we were together? In my heart, I declared war on Derek and Lily. They both made a complete fool of me. Don't think you can get through tomorrow unscathed. After a while, I could hear Lily's voice, which I didn't want to hear, leaking into the hallway. When I tried the bathroom door, fortunately, it was unlocked. I quietly entered and found Derek and Lily's mobile phones. I searched for evidence of their affair and sent it to my phone. Additionally, I recorded the sound of their affair and texted it to certain people. When their voices stopped, I crept out into the hallway and hid behind a potted plant, holding my breath. Lily, still in Derek's arms, came out of the bathroom, laughing joyously.
Karen is probably having fun right now, not knowing I'm in Derek's arms.
What a fool.
An affair on the eve of the wedding is the best. It's addictive. Hey, I won't forgive you if you cheat with another woman.
Don't be silly. I love only Lily. Their happy exchange irritated me, but I restrained myself from running out of the house and waited for them to enter the bedroom. I quietly followed and pressed my ear against the door. It seemed Derek and Lily had started round 2. Their voices echoed down the hallway. Holding back my urge to cover my ears, I waited for a response from my parents, and finally, the phone rang.
Karen, what was that all about?
Just as you heard. Lily and Derek were having an affair. On speakerphone, Tim and Samantha's screams could be heard in the background.
Lily would never do such a thing.
That's right. It must be Karen's misunderstanding. Come back home. Mom and Dad said dismissively in the background. I was irritated but instantly calmed down. Ah, here we go again. To my parents, Lily is always the sweet and lovely angel, no matter her age. It's always me who's wrong. I sighed and clenched my fist. Until now, I didn't argue to avoid conflict, but this time, I couldn't stay silent. With quiet anger, I told Dad. So what are you saying? That I'm lying? Dad seemed surprised by my confrontation. I didn't say that.
Karen, how can you talk to Dad like that?
Just connect it to the TV already. Karen, I've connected it. It seemed Samantha had taken action in place of my hesitant parents.
Do I just wait now?
Yes, thank you. I'll start the live broadcast now. I turned off the phone and faced the microphone. Let's intrude on the affair of Derek Evans and Lily Johnson. I opened the bedroom door and pointed my phone's camera at the bed. The two, caught in the act, froze in shock. Look, everyone. A man cheating with the bride's sister on the eve of the wedding. And the sister who stole her sister's fiancé. Creatures that would even astonish the animals in the zoo. Regaining their senses, they scrambled for the bedsheet. Lily snatched it, leaving Derek to fall off the bed and hurriedly cover himself with a pillow.
It's not what it looks like. You see, Derek was nervous about the wedding tomorrow, so I was comforting him.
Lily's strained excuse almost made me laugh. At times like this, Lily's head seems completely empty. How stupid. You think that excuse will work?
Stop it. Lily did nothing wrong.
Derek argued back at me. Defending your affair partner? Are you saying it's your fault?
It's Karen's fault. If Karen were prettier, I wouldn't have cheated.
I was too appalled to say anything. Really? By the way, Derek, did you know? Lily didn't fall for you. She went after you because you were my fiancé. She'll probably discard you once she's bored. Derek laughed after a moment of surprise. You're just jealous. We're not getting married, but we're seriously in love. I kindly informed Derek. Lily has always liked taking what belongs to others. She seduces friends' boyfriends, gets bored, and dumps them. She's been doing this so often that she's been noticed for her nasty character and now has no friends left. Right, Alice? Alice, who had entered the bedroom, nodded in agreement with my words. Lily, long time no see. Stealing your sister's fiancé, how admirable of you." At Alice's sarcastic comment, Lily pursed her lips. "Stop misrepresenting it. I just happened to fall for my sister's fiancé. Twice in a row isn't just coincidence." Lily looked unsettled by my comment. "Let me borrow this for a sec." I took Lily's mobile phone from the bathroom, found a certain image, and showed it to Derek, who averted his eyes. The image showed my ex-husband and Lily wrapped in a bedsheet, cuddling on a bed.
Lily, were you also involved with Karen's ex-husband?
It's Karen and Alice's fault for not being cute. Lily defiantly responded. Karen, Alice, and even my friends, they lack charm as women. That's why men always choose me when I seduce them. They have no taste in men. Lily said confidently, and I nodded deeply. You have a point. I should have chosen someone more sincere. I threw a glance at Derek, who awkwardly looked away. Come on, Karen. See? The main cause is your faces. Lily laughed irritably, carried away by her own words. Being beautiful, both men and women treat me kindly. Even my parents listen to me. My part-time manager overlooks my fake illnesses. Life's a breeze. I pressed my forehead and muttered. Poor person. Huh? Do you know why Derek chose me as his wife and not Lily? Because you met at work, right? Lily's expression said, what's the big deal? After meeting, Derek could have broken off our engagement and married Lily. Dad and Mom are annoying, and it's a hassle, right, Derek? I scoffed.
Oh, even my phone.
I'll borrow this. I took Derek's phone, showed it to Lily, and her smile faded. Lily, you were really beautiful. Exactly my type. It's a pity you're not smart. A dumb mistress is fine, but a clueless, housework-inept wife is a no-go. At 44, still part-time, quitting a job after 3 days because it's too hard is a bit much. Wanting to be a housewife and be supported by a husband but loving high brands and being a big spender, that's too much. Derek turned pale. What appeared on the screen was a text Derek had sent to a friend. Lily's expression changed to one of anger.
Derek, who are you talking to like that? You should be happy just to be with a beauty like me.
No, Lily is beautiful, but there are many people who are just pretty.
Fine, let's break up. I've had enough of you, Derek.
Lily said defiantly. I still have Dad and Mom. They treat me like a princess. They're always there, serving me every day. I hope they stay healthy and continue cooking for me. Wow. So you use your parents as housekeepers? Classic Lily. Derek, you were planning to make Karen do all the housework after marrying her, weren't you? That's a wife's duty. Derek and Lily began to argue. Making a working wife do all the housework is outdated thinking. No wonder you're both getting married for the first time at this age.
I don't need to hear that from the unmarried Lily.
As Derek and Lily started fighting seriously, I intervened. Lily, are you sure you want to say all that? What do you mean? The camera is still rolling. The live broadcast isn't over. What? Lily turned ashen. I bet there's a big fuss at Derek's house right now. Everyone knows about your affair and your true nature, Lily, including Dad and Mom.
What should I do? What should I do, Karen?
Lily, more panicked than I'd ever seen, clung to me. Huh? I don't know. You did this to yourself. Clean up your own mess. I said firmly, shaking off Lily's arm and turned to Derek. I can't live in a room where Derek and Lily had an affair. It's too dirty. I'm canceling the lease, so get out. And pay the cancellation fee for the wedding venue. After saying what I needed to, I stopped the camera. Resisting the urge to throw the engagement and wedding rings in Derek's face, I placed them on the bedside table. Leaving Derek, covering his crotch with a pillow and looking awkward, and a near-tearful Lily behind, I left the room with Alice. But it wasn't over yet. After parting with Alice and returning to Derek's house, another problem awaited. I thought my parents would be disappointed in Lily's true nature, but they were surprisingly cheerful. The first thing they said to me, tired as I was this.
Karen, you're breaking off your engagement with Derek, right?
Of course.
Oh, good.
What? Good. I was stunned, and then my parents turned to Tim and Samantha.
Please marry Lily instead of Karen.
That'll solve everything.
What? We can't do that. Karen and Derek are breaking up, aren't they?
Tim and Samantha looked confused, but my parents were smiling.
Don't worry. They'll surely get along if they marry. Karen agrees, right? It's sad to break up two people in love. We want them to be happy. I held my head, feeling a headache coming on.
This made no sense.
We've already reserved the wedding venue. We just have to change the bride's name. We'll just say we mixed up the sisters' names.
No problem. My parents talked excitedly, and I was completely dumbfounded.
Didn't you see the live broadcast? Lily stole my fiancé. It's Karen's fault for not captivating Derek.
Dad said, and Mom nodded next to him.
It's Karen's fault for not being born beautiful. It's like an old drama, getting your fiancé stolen on the eve of the wedding.
Mom laughed and burst out, and Dad couldn't help but join in. I stared at my parents, laughing at my misfortune. They would forgive Lily no matter what. There was no love for me. Samantha's voice broke through my shock.
Are you really her mother?
When I looked up, Tim and Samantha were confronting my parents with disbelief.
This time, Derek betrayed Karen, and we feel sorry for that. But let me say this, isn't it wrong to side with Lily? As parents, it's natural to comfort Karen. Defending Lily and laughing at Karen, you're not qualified to be parents. Be quiet. Leave us alone.
My mom retorted.
It must have been your son who seduced Lily. She's not the kind of person to steal someone's boyfriend.
That's right.
Even if he hadn't met Lily, he would have cheated with another woman.
Tim and Samantha were stunned.
To know what your daughter did and still defend her, what an unreasonable family. We didn't expect this from you. Please leave, it's unpleasant. That's our line. Poor Lily can't marry her true love. It can't be helped. Derek wasn't right for her. Lily is a wonderful person, she'll find someone else soon.
My parents, looking somber, left without cleaning up after the meal, packing their things in a hurry. Feeling awkward, I took the dishes used by my parents and me to the kitchen and wiped the table. As I was gathering my things to leave, Tim and Samantha came to the entrance to apologize.
We're sorry on behalf of Derek. We didn't mean to cause you pain. We don't expect forgiveness, but we're truly sorry.
Their tone was sincerely apologetic.
There must be someone better for Karen than Derek. Please, find someone good and be happy.
Thank you. I left Derek's house. I found an apartment close to work and moved there. I arranged for a moving company to transfer the belongings from the apartment I shared with Derek. I waited for Derek to move his things before canceling the lease. I had no intention of seeing Derek again, so I hired a lawyer for our jointly acquired assets. I thought Derek would agree smoothly, but he suddenly became reluctant. Apparently, the cancellation fees for the wedding venue and honeymoon were higher than expected, and he had used up his savings. Trying to placate me and avoid loss, he suggested.
Everything we bought together should be mine. It was just a half-year affair, and we didn't have kids. Let's forget it.
Ignoring Derek's persistent texts, he finally got angry.
You earn a decent salary, trying to take my property? That's manipulative. That's why you were dumped.
Derek's persistent behavior led me to block his contact and send his texts to his colleagues at his company. The texts spread from Derek's colleagues to other departments. Derek's serious image crumbled, and he lost credibility. Feeling uncomfortable at his company, Derek resigned and joined a small enterprise. Surprisingly, it was an illegal business offering low wages. Even after taking on debt, Derek eventually agreed to a settlement in which I came out with an advantage in our jointly acquired assets. It seems he's unable to leave this illegal company. Cut off from Tim and Samantha, unable to borrow money, he struggled with debt repayment. When I demanded settlement money from Lily for both affairs, she angrily called.
I can't pay such money. We're family, it should be free. That's right, making Lily pay is absurd. Is money all Karen thinks about? That's why Derek left her.
Hearing my parents causing a commotion over the phone, I felt sick. So, I blocked the contacts of all three of them. Later, I heard from relatives that my parents and Lily, after sharing the story, faced severe criticism and were treated as outcasts by other relatives. Pressured by a lawyer, Lily, who had taken on debt to pay me, increased her part-time work. However, one of her jobs was managed by a relative. Branded as the sister who stole her sister's fiancé, she struggled to find another job and endured daily work. Despite my shattered dream of a happy family, I was now prepared to sever ties with my parents and Lily. Despite the unpleasant experiences of my childhood, I had always harbored some hope. Karen is as important as Lily. Karen is our precious daughter. I had hoped to hear such words from my parents someday, but this incident led me to give up completely. However, I now felt as if a fog had lifted. Perhaps because I felt clearer, my work improved, and I was recently promoted to department head. Additionally, at a party for singles that I attended with Alice, I met a wonderful man. He too had issues with his parents, and we both shared a desire to build a warm family. I'm not sure if I'll remarry, but I'm thinking of dating this kind man for a while. You're a bad woman, dear.
Isn't it the same for you, listening to such a bad woman? By the way, is everything okay with Jane?
It's fine. I just can't see her as a woman anymore. For Michael and Linda, it was definitely not the first meeting with each other, but the moment we were alone, that is what it comes to. I felt something boiling up from the bottom of my stomach. Leaving them, the three of us headed to the Botanical and Zoological Park. It was a perfect day for a drive. As we entered the main road, Lisa said,
"Oh, right.
What's up?"
Mom, I made sure the doors were locked."
At that moment, probably both Nick and I froze. What she was talking about was the entrance to the basement where the two should be. My name is Jane, a 35-year-old housewife. Currently living with my 2 years older husband, Michael, and our 8-year-old daughter, Lisa. I've thought about having another child. But there were 2 reasons why it ended up being just Lisa. One of the reasons was that I couldn't dream of having siblings myself. I have one sister, Linda. Our parents obviously favored her more, even to an outsider's eyes. I didn't like our parents for favoring just Linda, nor did I like myself for resenting her. That's why I was scared to give Lisa a sister. Linda has been pretty since she was little, even from a younger sister's point of view. Bright colored clothes suits her with a nice body. She has always been smiling and good at acting cute. On the other hand, I've looked so plain. No makeup or clothes suited me, which my mother was bored.
"Oh boy, you never look pretty with any items."
I hated her size for that. The main reason I went to a university in Urban and looked for a job was to get away from home, my parents, and Linda. Linda recently returned our family home again. I learned about it from a phone call from my mother.
"What's up? It's rare for you to call."
"Well, you see, Linda's come back again."
"Again?"
Linda had been married twice before. The first time was right after graduating from university. Frankly, it was a shotgun wedding. A marriage of necessity, though these days they say blessed with a child. At the time, Linda's situation was really one of no choice. Her partner was 5 years older than her. They met at a group blind date, and Linda aggressively approached him. As a result, she got pregnant before getting a job and ended up marrying. Her first husband was a decent marriage partner, even in our parents' eyes. His parents were initially happy to have a beautiful wife for their son. However, Linda showed her true colors soon enough. Before 5 years were up, her spending habits kicked in, depleting the savings meant for their future home. When her first husband could no longer trust her, he brought up divorce. However, since their son Nick was still young, custody went to Linda. Nick's father was extremely frustrated. But she was with her next husband for quite a while, wasn't she? What happened? Well, you see, she cheated. My mother's voice was heavy. A year after her divorce, Linda quickly found someone else and remarried thanks to being in her 20s. A beautiful divorcee with a child made a difference. Her next partner was the manager of the part-time job she was working at. Her appearance and charm played a big part again. After the marriage to the store manager, she quit her part-time job to care about rumors. I told her to stop overspending this time. But you know. Well, the spending did decrease somewhat. The income of her new husband was less than the first one. In fact, he had inherited a house after losing his parents early. Maybe Linda's aim was there. No need to spend on a future home, but if she did it again, she'd lose her place to live. But you know, it was fine until Nick was in elementary school. What does that mean? As you know, the interactions between parents or attending school events decreased as Nick was grown up. I nodded deeply. Certainly, being busy with such interactions doesn't leave much free time. Then, Linda had time on her hands. Wait, time on her hands and she cheated? Well, yeah. She always picks good men as husbands, but as for being attractive as men, I was astonished. Can a mother say such a thing? So now, Linda and Nick are staying at our house. By the way, she got divorced because of cheating, right? Could she pay the compensation from the divorce trial? Do you think she could pay? We had no choice but to cover it from our side. So, it wasn't just a temporary cover. As usual, too lenient. Oh, Jane, she said she'd come to visit your place sometimes. What? You're joking. Why do I have to entertain her now? What are you saying? She's your only sister. Oh man, started again. You've always been cold-hearted. Linda said so too. You hardly ever come back home. That's true. Why would I need to return to a place where I'm uncomfortable? Please, think about Nick. He's had to change schools so many times and seems so uncomfortable. I was at a loss for words when she mentioned that. Nick really is a good kid. Eventually, Linda and Nick started coming to our house frequently. Ironically, we now live in the neighboring city to our hometown, just an hour's drive away. Having Linda as a sister made me lose interest in having siblings and not want more children. The other reason was that after giving birth, my relationship with Michael became less intimate. It started with a job transfer and moving. Originally, we lived near the city center when we first got married. But around the time I finished pregnancy and childbirth, Michael got suddenly transferred. The place we moved to was Denver. Then he suddenly said, "This house looks very nice. Let's purchase it." The house was located in the eastern edge of Denver. We ended up living an hour's drive from our parents' home on the west end. The house had a basement, which he was most into. I've always wanted a studio. That was news to me. I knew he was into art. He chose art museums for our dates before we got married. But I never thought he'd paint himself. Oh? Didn't I mention it? I was in the art club in high school and wanted to go to art college. However, the costly tuition fee for art colleges were impossible for his family. It seemed to be a lingering regret for him. When purchasing own house, he always wanted a studio. But why basement? I need stable lighting from above, facing north. Actually, that was a semi-basement with the first floor raised. The studio was placed where there were light well windows. But it was too big only for the studio, so I decided to use half the room near the stairs as storage. As soon as we moved, I gathered various things and stored them there. Also, it became a place for occasional outdoor gear and my homemade wine. The studio's inner door is solid, lockable from both inside and outside. Once locked from the inside, it's Michael's dream space. On the other hand, the storage entrance has a very simple latch. Given the solid inner door, we didn't put much emphasis on the storage door. Michael started spending more and more time in that basement. Hey Mom, Dad doesn't play with me much since we moved here. I could only sigh at Lisa's sad words. It was still okay when it was newly built. But gradually he brought in a small fridge, a single bed, and a tablet. He often stayed overnight on the eve of holidays, only coming up for the bathroom and bath on the first floor. Why don't you take Lisa to the amusement park sometime? You want to take away my only pleasure? This is how I refresh to keep going at work every day. The number of arguments increased, and our marital life decreased. I spent my days on the upper floor with Lisa. We originally had 2 semi-double beds, but one was often unused. I frequently ended up sleeping with Lisa. Amidst all that, Linda started imposing herself on my place. Besides, she brought her son Nick with her. It's a bit strict at our place, but yours is spacious. Nick can study, right? Saying that, she'd leave Nick and go out. He would diligently do his homework and revision or entertain Lisa, waiting for his mother to return. One day, Linda noticed our basement. Oh, what's this? It's Michael's studio. You'll get in trouble if you go in, so stay out, Linda. A studio. Michael paints? She only said that much at the time. But that day, unlike usual, she stayed until night. At the dinner table, which I had cooked a lot, I started those conversation. So, Michael, I hear you paint. Oh, yes. A bit embarrassing to admit. There's nothing embarrassing about it. It's a wonderful hobby. Thanks, but my wife here, she doesn't really appreciate it. But you know, art is something that's not easily understood by the average person. I felt uneasy at Linda's sweet words. Do you paint landscapes? Currently, yes. Landscapes are still lives. I used to enjoy painting portraits in high school. Portraits, you say? Her eyes widened. Then, may I model for you? Huh? Are you sure, Linda? I've always wanted someone to paint a portrait of me. But Linda, aren't you job hunting right now? Right, that's her excuse for driving around during the day. What are you talking about? Even if I'm job hunting, I have days off, right? That's true, weekends are free for me too. Jane, you probably don't know about modeling fees. It's really helpful when someone close offers to model. Wait, what about our picnic next weekend? True, we were planning to go to the nearby botanical and zoological park for a picnic, a long-awaited trip. Then Nick chimed in. Hey Lisa, would you mind if I joined? You coming? Yeah. I've always wanted to visit that botanical and zoological park. That's right, Jane. Michael's busy with me, so why don't you go with our Nick? Linda chuckled and smirked at me. I understand. This woman is targeting my husband, just like in the past. Then, shall we discuss it now? Sure. And leaving dinner somewhat unfinished, Michael and Linda headed down to the basement. Left behind, we continued eating with 2 plates of leftovers in front of us. Sorry about Mom. Nick expressed his apology to me. There's no need for you to apologize, Nick. Besides, it's just modeling. Do you believe so? He gave a wry, mature smile. After a silent meal, he stood beside me to help with the dishes. Thanks, that helps. No problem, I'm used to it. He took the job of wiping and putting away the dishes, but he seemed to have something on his mind. What's wrong? Listen, Jane. Actually. He looked at me with a kind of desperation. Do you have something you want to tell me? I lowered my voice. Right, he must have offered to help to tell me something he didn't want Lisa to hear. Mom always lures men like that. You knew that? Yes. She even kicked me out of the house to cheat on someone recently. I shivered. Really? Yes. My dad was very dedicated to his work and treated me like his own son. But he often worked late into the night. Taking advantage of that, Mom brought a man home. So, I took photos and recorded their voices and told Dad. He bit his lip. I was so frustrated, thinking about how good my dad was. He clenched the cloth in his hand. Then Dad thanked me for telling him, and he started the divorce proceedings. So, you were the reason for their divorce? Yes. I felt sorry for that poor man being deceived by Mom. He didn't tell anyone that the evidence came from me. He couldn't take me in, but at least he didn't want to make my position worse. I see. Now, you're telling me that because you want me to do something? I think you should go check on them downstairs in a little while. Okay, I will. I replied. Then for 2 hours, Nick kept Lisa entertained with games.
I like you very much, Nick.
Nick, the well-behaved child, was excellent at handling Lisa. During breaks in the game, they searched the botanical and zoological park on the tablet, exciting her with what's there and what they'll see. As they happily played, I quietly headed down to the basement. Both the storage entrance and the inner door were left open. I silently and without turning on the light, entered the storage area, and crept towards a spot where I could see inside. What I saw was Linda sitting on a still life stand, embracing Michael. Even from a distance, I could see that the buttons on Linda's blouse were undone. You're a bad woman, dear.
Aren't you the same, listening to such a bad woman? By the way, is everything okay with Jane?
It's fine. I can't even think of her as a woman anymore. Laughing together in low voices, the unbearable sounds continued. It was definitely not the first meeting for them. So, this is what happens when they're alone. I felt something boiling up from deep within. But I didn't barge in angrily at that moment. The phrase art model is convenient. Even if Linda was dressed like that, she'd probably calmly say,
"There's such a thing as a nude model, right?"
Moreover, Michael would defend it with and say, "It's to understand the body's lines." I needed something more conclusive. Quietly, I went back outside and up the stairs. Seeing me return, Nick simply told me, "See? Just like I said. What will you do, Jane?" His tone was mature and unemotional. "I've thought of something." "Okay. I'll prepare myself too." Then, the weekend arrived. It was Saturday with a clear sky, and warmer than expected. Maybe we can have lunch on the grass at the Botanical and Zoological Park, I thought, searching the storage for outdoor gear with Lisa. By that time, the inner door was already closed. Although Linda brought Nick, she quickly entered Michael's studio and closed the door. We couldn't tell what was happening behind that door.
"What do we have here?"
"Let's see, a sheet and a pop-up tent in case the wind picks up, plus pegs. Also, ropes so it doesn't fly away."
"Jane, is the tent okay?"
"We'll ask at the entrance later." We continued chatting while carrying things out. Nick and I had our hands full, so we left the door open. Then, we got in the car and drove off. It was really a great day for a drive. As we entered the main road, suddenly Lisa said,
"Oh, right.
What's up?"
Mom, I locked the door."
"Huh?"
"Well, you guys both had your hands full. It's not good to leave the door open when we're leaving."
At that moment, probably both Nick and I froze. Lisa knew about the studio but didn't understand what kind of place it was. Michael takes care of all the cleaning and has told me not to touch anything. So, during the day, I usually lock the inner door to prevent Lisa from moving anything. But today, "Hey Lisa, why did you lock the storage door?" Nick asked her.
"Well, earlier, the door of the usually well-closed inner room was swinging." "Hey Mom, you always lock the inner room, right?" "But I don't know where the key for that is. So I thought locking it from the outside would be okay."
"Okay, I see. The inner door has a proper lock. But the outer one is just a latch, so even Lisa could lock it." "I see. That makes sense." I visualized the situation and felt a smile spreading on my face. Then I said to them, "Hey guys, let's go see Dad's parents after this, okay?"
"Wow, really?"
"Is that okay?" That was the plan. Going to my in-laws' house was part of it. But I added, "It's been a while, let's stay overnight." In the next evening, after having a delightful time and enjoying every meal at my in-laws' house, it's time to head back. No, not yet. Michael's father George and I was arguing about staying longer. Then, my smartphone rang. "Hello."
"What?"
"The police?" "What's up, Jane?" Put it on speaker, will you? Following George's request, I switched to speaker and answered the call. Is this Jane's phone? Yes, this is Jane. There seemed to be noise in the background of the police officer, with ambulance sirens blaring. What happened? Well, we received a report from your neighbors about sounds of breaking glass and bad smell coming from your basement.
What?
I was surprised and got aloud.
What's going on?
Michael was staying today, right?
Yeah, but why?
I said to George, my in-laws are truly kind people. They rarely can't see their granddaughter Lisa, but they adore her. The only concern of them is that they shared their complaints about Michael, who suddenly had bought a faraway house, over the phone. Honestly, compared to my parents, they're much more reasonable people. They even warmly welcome Nick, who's technically just my nephew. I asked the police.
So, what exactly happened?
Yes, it seems Michael broke the window.
Could you explain a bit more?
I'll give you the details in sequence. Then we'll go play games over there.
Okay.
Sensing the situation, Nick took Lisa away. It was indeed not a conversation for Lisa to hear. Then the police officer began to explain to us. A neighbor was startled by the sound of breaking glass and peeked into our house. The neighbor hesitated at first, but knew with each other well, so entered the yard to find the source of the noise. She discovered it was the window of our usually unnoticed basement. In a panic, she peered through the broken window and smelled something awful. Then she saw a naked man and woman, wrapped in blankets and sheets, writhing in pain. Soon after, she hurriedly called the police. One of the naked people was identified as Michael. My in-laws' faces twisted as they listened.
What on earth is he doing?
Ignoring George's anger, I continued.
We're hearing the ambulance siren there?
Yes. When we approached, we were told they were trapped and injured, so we called an ambulance and a rescue team. What a big operation. My in-laws sighed more heavily. We removed a window pane due to security considerations, as the front door was locked, and sent in a team to rescue the two.
Thank you. But what kind of injuries?
Michael apparently fell from a stand trying to climb out of the window and hurt his back. My in-laws looked shocked, their mouths gaping. Then, I asked something else that needed to be confirmed.
The other woman, is her name Linda by any chance? She's my sister.
Okay, your sister, she is. The police officer hesitated.
What's wrong?
Yes, she identified herself as Linda. We've already contacted your family about this, but the source of the bad smell was her.
Excuse me?
It seems she had a stomach upset, maybe due to the cold or drinking too much beer. She was naked and had defecated. There's a lot of excrement scattered in your basement.
I'm sorry.
Apparently, they tried to clean themselves with the stored drinking water in the storage. It spread all over the floor and soaked into the clothes they had left behind, affecting both of them. My in-laws grimaced at the mention of the clothes.
Where is my husband now? Which hospital?
Let's see. The police gave the hospital name and address and hung up. I couldn't quite comprehend what was happening. I should say, I was aware we had locked them in. I thought there would be solid evidence of the affair, and we could thoroughly check the studio later. However, that was unexpected. Certainly, if locked in, they couldn't use the toilet. To think it led to such a big incident with the police, ambulance, and rescue team. Jane, are you all right? Realizing the call had ended, Nick rushed over and shook me. Then he suddenly apologized toward my in-laws.
I'm so sorry for what my mom did.
Right, I needed to play the responding to his questions. Nick, did you hear that?
I heard Linda's name. Sorry, that's my mom. She was targeting Michael. What? So, she said she'd model.
I deliberately raised my voice.
Yes, and she tried to let us go out.
That's terrible.
I'm so sorry.
No, you're not the one. Apologize for such things. George, could you guys please go to see Michael now? That's right. I have to listen to the situation exactly. What about you, Jane? I'm not sure what to do now. I'm too shaken and might cause an accident if I drive. Okay, all right. we'll go check on him."
Thank you.
After they left, Nick and I exchanged a firm handshake, completing our charade. 2 weeks later, my lawyer reported things were likely to go smoothly. Indeed, I had been staying at my in-laws and making my next move. First, I called the neighbor Nancy, who discovered the situation, asking for detailed descriptions of when the two were rescued. Nancy is a gossip lover and skilled in quickly spreading what she sees and hears. I had always maintained a good relationship to avoid any bad rumors, but who knew it would come in handy like this?
Oh dear, a police car and an ambulance in a residential area? The place was crowded with onlookers. And your husband, well, how should I say?
I urged her to continue.
And that other woman. She smelled so bad. What did she eat to produce such a stench?
Upon revealing the woman was my sister.
That's shocking. So, your sister seduced your husband?
She sounded almost excited. So, I replied with a feigned and strong voice.
It seems to be the case.
While she expressed sympathy, her excitement was unmistakable. Thanks to her, I knew there were many witnesses to the affair. My words about the neighbors watching would spread quickly among them. Next, I sought a lawyer for the divorce and to get a restraining order against Linda. I couldn't stand the sight of Michael. I decided to settle everything through the lawyer.
What about going home?
Lisa asked.
Thieves broke into our house.
I explained. Well, they were thieves, in a way.
Thieves took Dad away.
She tilted her head, seemingly confused. She had lost expectations and familiarity with a father who'd stopped playing with her. Meanwhile, Michael's incessant calls were unrelenting. Ignoring them, I recorded his voicemails. Apparently, he broke his back in the fall and had to be hospitalized. According to my in-laws, both Linda and Michael smelled terrible.
I'm utterly disappointed at Michael,
lamented Michael's mother Mia, who fiercely lectured them in the hospital. George also disgusted and considered severing ties with him. Their scolding probably fueled the flood of messages from Michael.
What's this? I'm hurt. Why aren't you showing up? Did you lock me in? A lawyer came, divorce? No way. What? Lisa locked the door. Hey. Why is there a video circulating online? Did you do something? Fine, I'll agree to the divorce, but isn't the expense too much? Please, I beg you. Can't you lower the compensation? Nobody wants to buy the house with the basement in this state. Please, just answer the phone once.
His voice was tearful toward the end. I do get calls from Linda. But since it's just incomprehensible ranting, I turn the volume down as soon as I recognize her voice. I can't let Lisa hear such foul language. On the other hand, Nick managed to contact his biological father.
Mom never gave me his cell number, but Grandma had told me the home phone number.
She said to call it in case of an emergency.
Emergency?
Yeah. Grandma was really upset she couldn't get custody from Mom. She said there was something missing back then, and I ended up going with Mom.
I see. But after what happened this time, I think she's definitely not fit to be a parent anymore.
I hope that's the case, he said with determination in his voice.
Mom always complained about my housework.
Even so, she wouldn't help me.
Really?
Yeah, thanks to that, I can do many things by myself, though. I couldn't help but feel sorry for him.
My real dad was against it, so just for that, I've always wanted to go with him.
He said.
I see.
So, thank you for giving me this chance.
I should thank you. You know, your mom always liked to take things that were mine.
He looked up to the sky.
But you know, it's not about things, it's about people. You can't get caught up in that. At least he has a family, he shouldn't be tempted. He's no good otherwise.
I continued to him.
Therefore, we both got rid of something bad and feel refreshed, don't we?
As for the two of them, my divorce went through. I got full custody of Lisa, and it was decided I would receive property distribution, compensation, and child support. Michael decided to sell the dream house to make payments. But the house, especially the basement, was in such a bad state, so it got lowballed.
See? I say he is foolish. He is supposed to make studios and studies after the kids move out.
His father George said, but Michael's parents both still want to see their grandchild. I've been well taken care of by them, so I plan to keep in touch. Meanwhile, Linda and our parents were furious after being sued for compensation in the divorce. When my lawyer said to Linda,
"By the way, Jane has renounced her inheritance. She wants nothing to do with you. If you do anything rash, she'll get a restraining order."
Then unbelievably, she grabbed a vase and struck him with it. That's clearly assault, so she was charged and ended up behind bars for a short time. Our parents also had to sell their house to pay the additional compensation. That's what they get for spoiling her.
"Mom, I'm off."
I'm leaving too. After that, I moved a bit further away. To a place far from my parents' house and the house I used to live in. "Good morning," I say as I arrive at work.
"Hi, how are you?"
My current employer responds. He's Nick's father. I'm currently employed as an office worker at his company. It's not a big company, but it's a sincere business rooted in the community. On days off, Lisa asks to visit Nick at his father's place. They're grateful to me for giving Nick the chance to return. They are far better people than my own parents. Finally, days with people I can feel at peace with have arrived. From now on, I plan to live brightly and happily, mainly for Lisa's sake.
Taking the house, the savings, and the retirement fund. You can go live in a home.
Understood. These were the last words spoken to me by my husband of 35 years on the final day of our marriage. Rather than cherishing the effort I put into raising our children, caring for our parents, and working tirelessly, he chose to cast me aside in the most humiliating way. What was the meaning of my 35 years of dedication? He left all responsibilities to me while he enjoyed nights out. Never once did he express gratitude, as if my efforts were expected. Looking back, I'm amazed at how long I endured this treatment. But now, it's time for me to live my life in my golden years. I thought it was my husband's turn to be miserable. My name is Grace, I'm 60 years old. Working part-time at a food company's factory. My husband's name is Robert, he's 65. We met through a mutual acquaintance. And got married when I was 25. Marking 35 years of marriage. Our relationship began with what was then popular group dating, and after several dates, influenced by our friends, we started dating. As we met more and more, we both started to think that if we were to marry anyone, it would be each other. Getting married felt like a natural progression. Starting our life together, I realized Robert had no savings. In the beginning, we lived in a small apartment, with most living expenses covered by me. Robert's low income made me anxious about our future, so I continued working. Sometimes unable to manage household chores due to overtime. "You're late. I'm hungry already."
"Did you wait? You could have eaten first." "How can I eat when there's nothing to eat?"
Robert often came home earlier than me, as he rarely worked overtime, yet he never helped with household chores.
"Isn't it a woman's job to do the housework?" We're not in that era anymore.
That time was when women were starting to make significant strides in the workforce. The term career woman was becoming common, but Robert insisted that household duties were a woman's job, as if stuck in an outdated mindset. I would have preferred being a housewife if it were financially feasible.
Balancing work and home life is what defines the modern woman.
Our situation wasn't exactly the stereotype of a henpecked husband, but reflected Robert's tendency to interpret things in a way that suited him. While I was constrained, Robert often went out drinking.
"If you're going to be late, at least let me know." "Quit nagging. It's my time. I can do what I want."
His tone grew even harsher when he came home drunk. While I couldn't freely use my own money or time, Robert enjoyed his.
"I feel like I'm always getting the short end of the stick."
Early in our marriage, I was so frustrated that I considered divorce. But when I confided in my mom, she strongly advised against it. I also worried about societal judgment and lacked the courage to leave. Living together meant acknowledging both the good and the bad, I constantly reminded myself. After my husband Robert received his paycheck, he'd either go out for drinks or just enjoy his freedom. He never considered taking on a side job or working overtime. Instead, he'd leave work on time, choosing between heading out for drinks or coming home. When he did come home and found me not there, he'd complain. "I hate coming home to an empty house. Seeing the lights off through the window stresses me out. But sometimes I have to work late." I'd respond, "What's the point of you working overtime? You should find a different job." He'd retort. Robert took it upon himself to call my workplace and suggested they let me go. Whether my boss wanted to avoid getting involved in whatever was happening or had already wanted to fire me, I was encouraged to resign. It became uncomfortable to stay, so I left a job that was hard to get in the first place. Now, I was faced with the daunting task of job hunting again. Having already left 2 companies, my resume wasn't passing the initial screenings. In a panic, why not work part-time? "I'm working full-time anyway," Robert casually mentioned. I wasn't particularly career-driven, so I didn't cling to my aspirations. However, I was worried if we could manage on Robert's salary alone. So, I took on 2 part-time jobs. One as an early morning cleaner and another as a supermarket cashier. I'd even work overtime at the supermarket on days I knew Robert would be home late. I made sure to be home when Robert was around and worked diligently when he wasn't. I endured years of this routine, convincing myself that Robert needed me. I found his desire to have me home when he returned somewhat endearing at the time. A year into our marriage, I gave birth to our first son. "Our apartment is getting too cramped. Yeah, the kid will want his own room when he's older, and he might even want siblings." Around that time, Robert's mom, Karen, who was a divorced single mother, suggested we live together. Probably, she felt lonely after Robert, her only child, left home. "It's all positives, right? We won't have to pay rent," Robert said, likely echoing Karen's words. I wanted some time to think it over. "Mom's already getting things ready," he pressed, revealing that a room for our son was already being prepared, complete with new wallpaper. I was shocked at how far they had progressed with their plans without me. Wanting to continue working part-time, I agreed, albeit a bit lightly. A decision I would soon regret. Karen seemed to have it out for me, delivering daily doses of sarcasm. "It's sad for the child to see his mom work so much. I can't believe this. It wasn't like this in my time," she'd say. Karen had never worked. After her divorce, she relied on her parents to raise Robert. Karen's family was somewhat wealthy, so there was money. Now, it seems she's living off a small inheritance and a meager pension. Though her spending habits seemed a bit extravagant. Her kindness extended to her hobbies and her son and grandson, but never to me. Meals were prepared without considering me, and I was often left behind on outings. I was thankful she looked after my grandson, though. With Karen taking over the household, Robert told me, "You can work full-time now, overtime included." "What? Why all of a sudden?" I asked, baffled. "Since Mom's here, you can go work," he said. I thought to myself, what a selfish person he is. It was then I realized that when he said he wanted me to stay home, it wasn't because he wanted me there, but rather someone to take care of his needs. I started my mornings by dropping off our child at the childcare center, then heading to work as a temp. Fortunately, Karen was always willing to pick up our grandson, which allowed me to rely on her for the return trips. Being able to work overtime without complaints was a relief. This routine continued for about 10 years until Karen began to act strangely. "Who are you?" "A thief, I guess." "Robert, call the police." No, it's me, Grace. Karen had developed Alzheimer's disease and saw me as a complete enemy. She increasingly failed to recognize Robert and our son as well. One day, while wandering, she was involved in a traffic accident and became bedridden. "This is your fault. You're responsible for taking care of her," Robert blamed me. "How is it my fault? You shouldn't be working late nights. But you're the one who said I could work." Our arguments became endless. I considered leaving with our son, but couldn't abandon Karen. Besides, our son loved both Robert and Karen too much for me to separate them. Karen, who never accepted me as family, complained daily while I cared for her. When I confided in Robert, he dismissed it simply. "She has dementia, what can you do?" Eventually, I quit my job and became increasingly isolated. I had hoped Karen might become kinder to me, thinking I was a stranger due to her condition, but that was wishful thinking. She must have inherently disliked me. Yet, she was still an important grandmother to our son. I cared for Karen alone until she passed away. After Karen's death and our son becoming independent, only Robert and I remained. With Robert's retirement coming up next year, I looked forward to traveling together and exploring new places. However, Robert presented me with something shocking. "Mine's already filled out. Just sign and submit it." "A divorce application? It's obvious if you look at it. You're really dumb, you know." That's what's been so annoying. I felt as if I'd been punched. It felt like I might collapse right there. Why? Did I do something to deserve a divorce? If I had to say, I don't want to spend the rest of my life with you. What do you mean? Robert looked at me with a scornful smile and dropped a bombshell. I want to marry someone else. And then, there was Robert's mistress. It seems their affair had been going on for years. The mistress was 20 years younger than me. "Even when I was taking care of Mom and raising our child, you were cheating?" That's about right. The anger inside me was about to explode. While I endured Karen's harsh words, took care of our child, and suffered loneliness all by myself, Robert was out having fun with his mistress. I wish I never knew this. "You've been deceiving me all along. I'll never forgive you." "And what are you going to do about it?" "Like you could do anything." Robert taunted me with a smirk. "So, you're divorcing me to be with her?" "That's right. She's much younger than you." "Understood. I'll sign the divorce papers. But just so you know, I'll be seeking compensation from both of you." "Fine by me. I'll pay whatever amount. I've got Mom's inheritance, after all." "Oh, but just so you know, I'm not splitting any property with you." I took a moment to think. I had some savings of my own, which I didn't want Robert or his mistress to get their hands on. "Okay, I'll settle for the compensation. In return, we don't split my assets either." Robert burst out laughing at that. "Your money isn't worth much anyway. I don't need it." We signed the documents in the presence of lawyers, agreeing not to pursue a division of property but to settle on a compensation claim. I received $30,000, which seemed to be paid out in a lump sum from Karen's estate. He probably wanted to start his new life with his mistress as quickly as possible, resolving any messy ties with money. After the lawyer left, "I'm taking the house, the savings, and the retirement funds. You can go live in a home," Robert said. And so, I did end up moving into a facility. Not because Robert told me to, but because it seemed like a more enjoyable way to spend my retirement. The house was originally Robert's family home, and I had nowhere else to live. My sister and her husband were living in my family home, and I didn't want to impose on my son and his wife. I knew Robert had no savings, so dividing property would have been pointless. I preferred to get the divorce over with quickly and was confident I could make it on my own from now on. Robert was the heir to Karen's estate, and the compensation was enough for me. Months later, Robert showed up at the facility. Though I hadn't given him my current address. He wasn't supposed to know I had moved into the facility. He must have used some agency to find me. I wondered what he could possibly want after all this time. There were other residents at the facility. So I asked him to wait on the outdoor terrace. Seeing Robert sitting there, looking around, I felt a sense of pity. What had I ever seen in this man to marry him? It was a mystery even to myself. Sorry to keep you waiting. What do you want?
What's all this about?
Robert confronted me without a greeting, clearly shocked. I played dumb, knowing full well why he was surprised. Why are you here all of a sudden? How did you find me? It took me forever to track you down since you wouldn't contact me. You didn't tell our son either, did you? He had no idea. I didn't want to bother him, as he has his own family now. But that doesn't answer my question. How did you find out about this place? I hired a detective. When I mentioned I needed to contact you about the compensation, they found you. Having an ex-husband is quite handy. So, he had gone through an agency after all. Which detective agency was it? I was furious at the breach of privacy, but kept my cool. More importantly, how can someone like you afford to stay in such a luxurious facility? That was what Robert was astonished about. After our divorce, I had moved into a high-end facility that we had once considered for our retirement. It wasn't your typical nursing home, but more of a luxury apartment complex with an attached hospital. There was also a dining hall run by a nutritionist, and I spent my days enjoying the company of other residents and helpers. You could be on your own if you wished, and someone would check on each room daily to ensure no one had fallen. Each room was equipped with an emergency call button for immediate assistance. I heard this place costs $1 million? How do you have that kind of money? Actually, I've been investing for the past 35 years, ever since we got married. I wanted to ensure we could enjoy our retirement together. I had been laid off during a recession and struggled to find a new job, which drained my savings and filled me with anxiety. Understanding the unpredictability of life, I realized that saving money wasn't enough and started learning about investments. I didn't want to seem greedy, so I never told Robert, whom I was dating at the time. I began investing modestly. After we got married, my desire for us to enjoy good food and travel in our retirement grew stronger, prompting me to invest more seriously. Since we both worked, I gradually invested my earnings, sacrificing outings with friends, delicious meals, shopping, and vacations, putting all my disposable income into investments. After 35 years of consistent investing, I amassed a significant fortune, partly because I started right when the economy was down. When I shared this, Robert claimed, "Then that money is mine too." I had anticipated he would say something like that. "Sorry, but you have no claim to my money." "Why not? I'm your ex-husband. It should be part of my assets too." "You renounced any claim to my assets in front of our lawyers. Have you forgotten already?" "Damn, that's why you insisted on a lawyer. You tricked me." "Who's been deceiving whom all along?" Robert's face twisted in frustration. Realizing this conversation was a waste of time, I urged him to leave. "No way. I'm not leaving. I'll live here too." I was speechless with disbelief. Shortly after, a security guard arrived, prompted by another resident who noticed my distress, and escorted Robert out. Due to his harassing behavior, Robert was banned from the facility and added to the blacklist. Curious about his persistence, I contacted our son, who revealed that Robert was in debt. After our divorce, Robert planned to marry his mistress. However, she became furious upon learning about the compensation he paid me. To appease her, Robert lavished her with gifts. But she eventually left him for a younger man without marrying him. "Are you dumping me after all I've spent on you?" It was too late for regrets. The mistress had moved on, losing interest in a now penniless Robert. It turns out she was using Robert as a convenient source of money, likely having always preferred the younger man. I couldn't believe a woman 20 years younger would seriously consider marrying someone like Robert. It seems he was the only one who truly believed in his affair turning into marriage, which must have been a huge shock to him. After donating all of his inheritance to his mistress and accumulating debt, Robert ended up alone in a house that was over 70 years old. The house was in bad shape, with many parts broken and no money for repairs. He now lives alone in a leaky home. My son expressed no interest in helping him. Recently, a community worker visited, asking Robert to at least repair the exterior walls because it was affecting the neighboring house. Robert's angry outburst over this request led to a police incident. My son had to pick up his father from the police station, where he told Robert they were through.
"You're abandoning me too?"
Robert cried, clinging to his son, who shook him off. Discarded by his son, I thought how pitiful Robert was. After the incident with the police, he became a pariah in the neighborhood, spending his weekends indoors. After telling me about Robert's current situation, my son asked me to keep in touch occasionally. I was touched that he cared. Sometime after talking to my son, I received a call from Robert. Ignoring it, he then called the facility directly. Such persistence. The staff were worried for me. I decided to answer just once. "I just need a little money." "I refuse." "Don't you have a pension?" Robert was supposed to have recently retired, so his claim of having no money seemed like a lie. "I didn't get anything." "Don't lie. You received a pension, didn't you?" "I got fired just before retirement because of the affair." Turns out, Robert was fired just short of retirement. Apparently, his mistress was a co-worker. After breaking up, Robert's stalking scared her into reporting him to their employer. Ultimately, his affair was exposed, leading to his dismissal without a pension. His stalking and the resulting police involvement also became a problem. I felt no sympathy for his story. I asked the facility staff to call the police if he contacted again. When Robert realized he couldn't reach me by phone, he resorted to sending letters. The letter began with, "I want to see you again. I'm lonely." But towards the end, "I need some money." The content changed to things like that. "I think he's struggling." There was a time I inadvertently laughed. I forgot which letter it was, but the ink was slightly smeared. It looked like it was from tears, but I suspect it was just water. I wondered what the point of such a performance was. Truly, it must be hard for him. The letters stopped after about a year when I didn't respond. Years passed, and I had completely forgotten about Robert. Then one day, while I was shopping, a man in dirty clothes, emitting a slight odor, approached me. It was undoubtedly Robert, now thin with almost entirely white hair and a bushy beard. "Isn't that Grace?" I was shocked by how much he had changed. "I've finally found you. Let's start over. You're all I have." Feeling frightened as Robert grabbed my hand, he insisted. "It's me, Robert. You recognize me, right?" "I do, but we are strangers now. Goodbye." As I tried to leave, Robert blocked my path, looking at me with desperate eyes, then suddenly begged, "Please, come back home. I don't want to be alone in my old age. You are the one who drove me away. Have you forgotten?"
"I'm apologizing, aren't I?"
"Sorry isn't enough. I've moved on. You should too." Despite my attempts to ignore him, Robert kept chasing me, repeatedly bowing his head. "We're divorced, Robert. Stop this." "I was wrong. You're the most important thing to me. I've realized that now." "It's too late." As I tried to distance myself, Robert grabbed my arm. Then, Could you let go of her, please?
Who are you?
This is my husband.
What?
I had remarried. My new husband's name is Matthew. 2 years my senior. We got close in the same facility where we met. It was Matthew who had called security when Robert visited. This was shared with me by another resident, and I was drawn to their considerate and kind nature. We naturally spent more time together and decided to marry. Despite wondering if it was odd to remarry at our age, we chose happiness for our final chapter. Matthew pulled Robert away from me.
You remarried?
Yes. So please leave me alone. So that's how it is. Robert was visibly shaken. I was worried he might lash out at Matthew in anger, but he had no energy left. Instead, he collapsed, crying on the spot. Please stop. It's embarrassing.
Shut up. Don't bother me.
Robert cried unabashedly, as onlookers watched from afar. I thought it was a pitiful sight. A grown man, crouched down on the street, crying. Is this something a person can do without shame? Or perhaps, am I being tested? Grace, let's go. Yes. Encouraged by Matthew, I left the scene behind. Since then, Robert has not appeared before me again. According to my son, Robert still lives in the same old, unrepaired house. Unable to properly take care of household chores and accumulating garbage to the point of generating complaints for the smell. My son has been inconvenienced by repeated contacts every time there's a complaint. Despite attempts to reason with him, my son finally lost his patience. In front of a city official, "He's not my son," Robert declared. Following that, attempts to contact my son ceased when Robert reacted angrily to them. It seems the authorities have also given up, deeming any effort futile. Truly, Robert has become a neighborhood nuisance. However, that's no longer my concern. Ultimately, abandoned by everyone, Robert lives in isolation. If only I hadn't started that affair, my son mentioned hearing Robert say. But to me, it's not about the affair. It's the price of living selfishly, without regard for others, now coming back to haunt him. It's his responsibility. Humans may be prone to making regrettable decisions, but continuing without reflection for over 70 years is merely pitiful. Robert will likely never realize this, having destroyed his own future. The task of repairing it falls to him, though he may lack the strength to do so. I hope he faces his actions and lives on. I'm thankful to Robert. Had I continued to rely on him, my later years would have been disastrous. His decision to divorce because of his affair allowed me to live my life. I've started to communicate more frequently with my son. It was a turning point when Emily, my son's wife, who mediated between us, said, "Please don't worry about it." That moment made me realize how much of my life was spent overly accommodating others. I had distanced myself from my adult son to avoid burdening him. Shocked when he expressed his dislike for his grandmother and father from childhood. Aware of the mistreatment and infidelity, I've resolved to live the rest of my life without such undue consideration. Now, my son's family and grandchildren visit, allowing us to make up for lost time in conversation. My son seems a bit shy, but it's strange how he can talk naturally when his wife and grandchildren are around. He has accepted Matthew, and to my grandchildren, Matthew is like a real grandfather. Currently, Matthew and I enjoy our time in the facility, surrounded by friends and content. My priority is health, hoping for a long life.
Hey, mister. I'm the daughter of this company's owner, all right? My dad's the boss. Don't lump me with these lowly, poor employees.
Surprised by both her vulgarity and her true identity, my dad paused with a shocked expression, then cleared his throat softly. Meanwhile, Carol wore a smug look, as if she had just made a grand statement. Remembering that Dad originally came to our company for business, I realized we couldn't afford to cause any more trouble. So I tried to apologize to Carol. Just then, Dad spoke in a low voice. "So, the lower ranks are the poor employees, huh? Maybe it's time to revise the salary structure." He muttered this almost to himself. "What? Are you mocking me? Fine. Mister, what's your name? Which subcontractor do you work for? I'll tell Dad about you. It might just be your fault if the company goes under," Carol retorted. Dad, looking slightly puzzled, thought for a moment before breaking into a smile. "Then, let's go say hello to the boss. Lenore and the others, come along." Everyone except Dad looked shocked, but he walked ahead. Not wanting to be left behind, we hurried after him. "My name is Lenore. I'm a hardworking 28-year-old. The company I work for is quite large, and I work tirelessly every day. My dad, concerned about me, contacts me once a week, but I always reply with, 'Don't worry,' trying to reassure him, almost forcibly. His concern is probably because he wants to recruit me to his company. 7 years ago, when I was still a college student, I was busy with job hunting every day to secure a job offer. Dad, who runs his own company, once invited me to join his company, saying, 'Why bother with job hunting? You can just come work for my company.' It's not that I didn't want to go to his company, but I didn't want to rely on such connections. I wanted to succeed on my own merit. And I wanted to work alongside him, as an equal, once I was fully competent at my job. I explained this and persuaded him. Reluctantly, he agreed, and I joined my current company. It's been 6 years since I started working here. Now, I have more responsibilities, and I even have subordinates. And it's our busy season. It's not uncommon for our department heads to be absent from the office for an entire day during this time, and sometimes I can't even sit at my desk for more than 30 minutes. We're that busy. I don't have the luxury of constantly worrying about Dad's feelings. Today, I've been bustling around the office since morning. Even amidst the rush, a shrill voice caught my ear as I passed by a meeting room, prompting me to stop. The door was slightly ajar, and peering inside, I saw a woman with a tray bowing her head before another woman who sat arrogantly, berating her. "How many times do I have to tell you? I don't like coffee, I want Coke." It seemed the employee had brought the wrong beverage. The angry woman looked younger than me, but whose guest was she? A frequent complainer, perhaps? It's disgraceful to fuss over complimentary beverages. I wondered what her parents would think. Just as I was about to open the door and intervene. "Ah, there she goes again," I heard a voice behind me. Turning around, I saw my colleague Sissy peeking into the room. "You scared me. Don't just start talking out of nowhere," I chided her in a whisper, careful not to be overheard. "Sorry, but it's unexpected to see you peeking, Lenore," she said with a mischievous grin. Sissy is only a year younger than me, even though she's my subordinate. We get along well and often go out for drinks. Professionally, she's my subordinate, but in our private lives, we're like friends. I wasn't peeking. "By the way, Sissy, do you know who that woman is?" I asked. "Oh, she's quite notorious around here," Sissy replied with a slight smirk. "That's Carol, the boss's only daughter." "His daughter? But why is she here?" I inquired, puzzled. "She occasionally comes to play around like this, throwing her weight around with the staff. No one dares to contradict her because she's the boss's daughter." As Sissy explained, Carol continued to berate the employee. "Go buy me a Coke! What's your name? I'll tell Dad!" she shouted. I want to help that employee, my colleague, but I hesitated. "Let's get back to work for now, Lenore," Sissy suggested. "Poor thing, we don't keep Coke for guests." Sissy gently closed the meeting room door, holding the handle that I was gripping. She enjoys bossing the staff around like this. She never actually reports anyone. Last week, it was ginger ale. You have work to do, Lenore. She's not worth your time. Her words reminded me of the tasks I had to complete. Sissy, are you free now? Want to come to the warehouse with me?
Sure. I was actually looking for you. I have some business there too.
We left the meeting room, the shouts still echoing, with heavy hearts. Why does Carol come here to play? She should be having fun with friends. She looks college-aged. I pondered aloud while checking inventory in the warehouse. Apparently, she's joining the company next year. She's been visiting frequently for that. You'd think she'd rather be with friends, but she doesn't seem to have many. Sissy commented. True. I mused, feeling uneasy about Carol. Shouldn't she value the employees who support her family's business? Especially since they'll be her coworkers and supervisors next year? It's not right to treat them as mere playthings. Does she not realize she's embarrassing her parents? As I pondered these things, the pressure of my pen on the inventory notes inadvertently grew stronger. Noticing this, Sissy glanced at my notes. I get why you're angry, Lenore. She's exactly the type of person you dislike the most, she said with a wry smile. That's true, but what really irks me is the boss and the executives who say nothing. They should reprimand her for such behavior. Apparently, she's an overindulged child, born late in her father's life. Sissy explained with a gentle smile, easing me back into work mode. Thanks to her, I managed to finish the warehouse work surprisingly quickly. Exhausted from the day, I was heading home when my mobile phone rang. It was a message from Dad. Lenore, I'm coming to your company tomorrow for a business deal. If you're free, I'd like to see you. I was surprised. Dad was visiting my office? The company I work for is in the same industry as his company, and I knew they were connected, but it was the first time he had shown his face at my company in the 6 years I've been working there. I hoped to see him, but it really depended on timing, so I just replied, If I'm free, I'll come and see you. Let me know. And then closed the message. The next day, my office was busy, but things started to calm down by lunchtime. While eating, I received a message from Dad. I'll be at your company soon. I checked the time and decided to wait for him outside. As I got up, Sissy, sitting next to me, asked,
Where are you rushing off to, Lenore? It's still lunch break.
Oh, my dad is visiting the office today. I thought I'd go say hi since it's been a while.
What? Can I come too, just to greet him?
She asked excitedly. Sure, let's go together, I agreed. Sissy followed me, checking her reflection in the window and fixing her hair. I was pleased to have such an eager subordinate. While Sissy and I waited for my dad at the entrance.
Is that him?
She suddenly pointed to a taxi. I shook my head. Steve would have driven his own car rather than take a taxi. As we looked in the opposite direction, a shrill voice called out,
Nice of you to meet me here.
I pretended not to hear, but Sissy made a disgusted face as if to say this is the worst.
Hey, you over there, where are you looking? I'm right here.
I turned around, frustrated. And there was Carol. She was dressed inappropriately for the office, in a flouncy miniskirt and casual t-shirt, clacking her heels as she walked towards us. Excuse me, but you're mistaken. We're waiting for someone else here, I said, looking away again. In an ear-piercing tone, Carol shouted,
What's with that attitude? Aren't you an employee here? Apologize right now.
Sissy looked at me with a panicked expression. Yes, I'm an employee. But why should I apologize? I responded calmly.
What?
Carol seemed even more incensed by this.
You, a lowly employee, think you can talk to me like that? Really, old lady?
Well, a company needs its lowly employees, doesn't it? And for your information, I'm only 28, not an old lady. Carol burst into laughter at my reply.
28? You look much older. Is it hard being poor? I pity you,
she said, pointing at me mockingly. I was furious, but I couldn't do much since she was the boss's daughter. I had to stand there, seething in silence, as she laughed. Then,
"Hey, Lenore! Long time no see!"
I heard a voice from afar. Approaching us was Dad, a slightly overweight, ordinary-looking man in a suit, waving his hand.
"Who's that weird guy?" "Hilarious,"
Carol said, looking at him and laughing. That was the last straw for me.
"Excuse me, that's rude."
I raised my voice.
"What? Who are you yelling at?"
Carol yelled back. "What's going on? Are you all friends?" Unaware of the situation, Dad smiled at me kindly.
"What? As if I would be friends with these people."
Carol snapped at him, switching her target from me to him. Dad's expression changed immediately.
"How rude to say these people when you are colleagues who work together."
He was right, but Carol wasn't convinced.
"Listen, old man. I'm the daughter of this company's owner. My dad is the boss. Don't lump me with these lowly, poor employees."
Dad looked shocked by Carol's rudeness and her identity, then cleared his throat softly. Meanwhile, Carol looked smug, as if she had just triumphed. Remembering that Dad originally came to our company for business, I realized we couldn't afford to cause any more trouble. So I tried to apologize to Carol. But at that moment, Dad spoke in a low voice.
"So, the lower ranks are the poor employees, huh? Maybe it's time to revise the salary structure."
He muttered this to himself.
"What? Are you mocking me? Fine. Mister, what's your name? Which subcontracting company are you from? I'll tell my dad about you. You might just ruin the company."
Carol spat out. Dad, looking puzzled, thought for a moment before smiling. "Well then, let's go greet the boss. Lenore and the others, come along." The only one unfazed by the situation was Dad, who had already started walking ahead. Not wanting to be left behind, we quickly followed him. We reached the boss's office, and Dad entered first. Sissy and I followed, tense. Carol, pushing past us, rushed to her father.
"Dad! This man, he..."
She began to tattle immediately. Before Carol could finish, her father spoke loudly.
"This man? Who are you talking to?"
"I'm sorry, Steve.
My daughter lacks manners."
He shot Carol a sharp look to silence her, then turned to us with a smile.
"Ah, it's your daughter with you today?"
"Did you know about me?" I asked, surprised. Dad sat down on a sofa.
"Wait, Dad!"
Carol protested. Dad gave me a kind look, then turned his sharp gaze to the boss.
"Earlier, your daughter called my daughter and her colleague lowly, poor employees."
"What's this about?" The boss's face tightened.
"Well, they deserved it. They were rude to me, just low-end employees."
Carol continued in her shrill voice.
"What?"
The boss turned pale and shouted angrily at Carol.
"What are you saying? This lady is the daughter of a valued client, and this man is her father and the current boss." "Eh?"
Carol's face turned pale, realizing the gravity of her actions.
To think such a large company still treats its employees as poor. You've become quite the boss, haven't you? If your employees are poor, shouldn't the company be ashamed?
The boss was sweating profusely.
"I can't leave my daughter in such a place. She'll resign today."
When the boss heard that, he immediately apologized to my dad and said,
"I'm terribly sorry. I've heard your daughter is very skilled. Please, not resignation. And you, apologize to him."
"Wait, Dad. What's going on?"
I whispered to him.
"I had let the boss know that you were employed here, to look out for you. As I knew that you don't like the preferential treatment, I told him just to keep an eye out."
Ignoring the boss and his daughter, Steve explained kindly.
"But I never thought this company would treat its employees like slaves. Lenore, you can quit now. You've done well here for 6 years. Come work for me."
"That's sudden.
I can't just leave in the middle of the busy season. I protested. Dad seemed a bit exasperated by my response, but he eventually agreed. All right, if you insist. After this busy season, come work for my company. And you, it must be uncomfortable staying here after this. What do you say? The industry is the same. He kindly offered this to Sissy.
Yes, absolutely.
Sissy replied immediately. Wait, Sissy. I haven't decided yet. I protested. Sissy looked at me quizzically. Why not? Your dad's company is one of the elite in the country, and you're his daughter. Why wouldn't you go? Dad nodded in agreement with Sissy's words. I don't want to join his company just because of connections. I know Dad's company is big, but I didn't want to take the easy way. I explained. Sissy smiled happily. That's so like you, Lenore. And she continued.
Lenore's father, I'm Sissy. I really appreciate that I can work with her. She is an outstanding boss.
As she praised me, Dad smiled and sobbed along. I felt embarrassed and urged Dad to continue. Dad, the boss is still. Ah, right, forgot about that. Sorry, Sissy, we'll talk later.
Yes.
Sissy cheerfully replied.
Now, boss, no need to apologize anymore. Let's end our business dealings here.
As my dad finally addressed to him, he was surprised and looked up at Dad.
That would be a great loss for us. I'm truly sorry. No, it's fine. This isn't because of the disrespectful behavior towards them. Then why?
He asked.
Please guide me. I'll improve anything. I'll definitely make improvements.
The company would suffer a huge blow if they lost their dealings with Dad. That's why the boss kept apologizing repeatedly. Improvement is impossible. Once trust is lost, it can't be regained. You say employees are your priority, yet your daughter treats them like slaves. Did you think I wouldn't hear about it?
I'm not sure.
Even from the side, I can see Carol turned pale. I could demote you from the boss, but should I? Dad asked.
Please, forgive me.
The boss pleaded.
Hey, Dad. Just because you're a valued client, you can't really do that, can you?
I asked.
I can.
Dad replied with a smile, indicating he really had the power. I don't inquire deeply into the relationship between the boss and Dad, but Dad might be more powerful in this industry than I thought. With this realization, the both attitudes of my dad and the boss make sense.
I won't go that far since I'm not a child, but I will end our contract. Thank you for your business.
With that, he stood up, straightening his suit.
Please, I'm begging you. Just for this term, please reconsider. How about a promotion for your daughter? No, a raise. She can even become an executive right now. Dad! But you said I would start from manager because of how it looks to others. An immediate promotion to executive is impossible.
At that moment, my dad's look at the two changed to one of disdain. And the boss's pleading eyes were fixed squarely on Carol. Despite this, Carol still seemed dissatisfied with the difference between what her father had said about my position and her own treatment. I almost felt sorry for the boss with such an oblivious daughter. But I had reached my limit and couldn't hold back anymore.
You plan to put a woman who called us lowly, poor employees and was rude to Dad in a position of authority?
I blurted out.
Well, my daughter doesn't understand because she hasn't experienced the real world yet. She'll learn to respect others through the hardships of society.
Respecting others has nothing to do with social experience. I interjected, louder than I intended. Carol looked up, startled, and I addressed her.
A company cannot function without its employees. Even someone who has never been an executive, like me, understands this. But you don't. Why? How would I know that?
Carol seemed genuinely clueless.
Do you think being a daughter of privilege puts you above others? Of course. I'm from a different upbringing. It's not my decision, it's God's.
To Carol's nonsensical reply, I forced a smile.
Then, as the daughter of this company's boss, I'm higher than you, right? You'll listen to me?
My smile was apparently so frightening that Sissy later told me it scared Carol, whose composure vanished.
Fine, what do you want? This company is not your playground. If you want to play, go find your college friends.
Carol hung her head in shame, her face flushed. Sissy quietly applauded me.
Well said. That's my daughter.
Dad laughed heartily. After that, Sissy and I spent a hectic month at work. But the second half of the busy season was unexpectedly calm. Each time our supervisors and colleagues looked puzzled, Sissy and I exchanged knowing smiles. A month later, Sissy and I resigned and joined my dad's company. Our previous company began to decline drastically. Rumors quickly spread that the abrupt termination of the contract with a major firm was to blame, prompting other companies to reconsider their dealings. Sales plummeted by 40%, most employees started job hunting, and the company's decline accelerated. The general meeting decided the crisis was due to the boss's fault, and he was ousted. His brother is now trying to rebuild the company. According to Dad, this brother is well respected. The company might be reborn into something better. On the condition that the former boss's family no longer be involved, Dad began moves to restart dealings with them. I also heard from Dad that the former boss's family began to lose their possessions, eventually selling their house. I don't know where they went, but I doubt a family accustomed to such wealth could adapt to normal life. In fact, Carol reportedly got a job at a grocery store, acted arrogantly to customers, got into an argument, and was fired within hours, becoming somewhat of a legend. In my personal life, I managed to convince Dad to let me start as a regular employee instead of directly becoming an executive. However, I'm aware that I'll eventually take over the company. So, I balance my everyday tasks with assisting the executive team. Constantly amazed by their innovative ideas that never occur to me, sometimes feeling overwhelmed. But every time I feel like my head is about to explode, Sissy is there by my side, saying,
Lenore, let's finish this task first. Then we can decide the priority for the next ones.
Her support keeps me grounded. Sometimes the pressure of being the boss's daughter feels crushing, but with Sissy around, I can stay confident and cope. Interestingly, Dad also likes Sissy, and sometimes the three of us go out for drinks. Every time Dad gets tipsy and tells this joke.
Lenore will be the next president, and Sissy the next executive officer. Don't even think about getting married and retiring, you too.
He often tells this story laughingly. However, what Dad doesn't know is that I'm secretly in a relationship. My desire to get married is still a secret from Dad.